Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow is underway on this Monday edition. We're glad you're with us as we broadcast across the OutKick network. It includes YouTube. You head over there, search out OutKick. Chad, well, maybe he's joining you in the chat, but he's not joining me in studio today at 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. He is on a trip with the Withrow men. The annual excursion, which is always really cool. We'll bring back some stories later in the week. We've got a jam-packed show coming up over the next 3 hours, live until 6 p.m. Eastern. Dan Mullen, former head coach at Mississippi State and Florida, he joins us in 20 minutes. A lot of reaction coming up from the college football weekend. Oklahoma over Texas. Mario Cristobal and deciding to run the ball instead of take a knee and run the clock out. Georgia Tech pulls the upset, and much, much more. Bobby Carpenter will also weigh in later this hour on all things college football. Dan Dockich, host of Don't At Me here on OutKick. I joined him this morning. He joins us this afternoon. And Bernard Pollard, one of the hard-hitting safeties in his career across a handful of teams, but you know him from Kansas City, Baltimore, and Tennessee. He hops in hour number 3. A lot to discuss. You can join us in the chat and join us on social as we hit the top headlines from the weekend. And it starts with the destruction of the New England Patriots. 34-0. The New Orleans Saints winning in New England, in Foxborough, to send the Patriots to 1-4. This was not, to me, going into this year, the end of an era. Perception-wise. I'm buying into it now. The Patriots were even worse in Week 5 than they were in Week 4, and they have been boat raced 72-3. 72-3 in consecutive weeks. Losing to Dallas and playing that defense is one thing with Mac Jones at quarterback and having no weapons on offense. Losing some players on the New England defense and just being inept and not able to turn to any talent on a consistent basis. But after losing to New Orleans, the Saints, who fighting for an opportunity to win the NFC South, well, here's New England staring down what could be a top 3, top 4 pick in the NFL draft. But Bill Belichick is discussing, well, now we start over. He's known for all of these quick one-liners. On to Cincinnati, and he didn't reference that yesterday postgame. Said they were awful, admitted that, and said what they were going to do, start over. And I'm thinking to myself, well, who's starting over with the rebuild for a Patriots roster that is far from competitive? The New England talent on that roster is as bad as some of the worst teams you could face in the AFC. Since Tom Brady bolted to Tampa Bay, Bill Belichick is 26-30. Hasn't won a playoff game, which, oh, by the way, Robert Kraft referenced and has harped on this offseason. And he doesn't have any answers right now. His team is the worst in the league in point differential. They're minus 76. And they've got Mac Jones, who they've benched for the second consecutive week, and he's the only quarterback they kept from camp originally. What happens from here? When do we hear from Robert Kraft? Because the silence there is, well, it's starting to become loud to me. Because he put out the mantra of, it's time to get back to the playoffs. It's time to go win a playoff game. We haven't done that since Brady left. And they started strong last year. Won close games. Not pretty, but winning close games. Had the opportunity to go after Dalvin Cook. Could have signed DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins admitted he gave the Titans offer and sent it out there to others to match. It was Tennessee and New England that were in on him. Patriots didn't bring him in. And now they sit and stare at a 1-win record going into Week 6. And this is a New England team that has scored as many points this season as opponents have scored off of New England turnovers. It's awful. Mac Jones isn't the answer, but it's not just a Mac Jones problem. This is a talentless problem. They have no touchdowns in their last 34 possessions. Not good. Starting over, it's more than just starting over now. They don't have a lot of luck on their side to pull together a win streak like we've seen in the past from a Bill Belichick coach team. Judon is sidelined until at least December. They have a group of talented players that haven't lived up to the billing. They've spent some money at wide receiver. It's not there. And so far for the AFC East, well, they're not competitive there either, even with the Jets, despite beating the Jets. The Patriots had just 156 yards of offense against the Saints, 3 turnovers yesterday. And this is a New England team that just averaged barely over 3 yards per play. But again, it's not just on Mac Jones. This starts up top with Bill Belichick, bringing in the coaches he did a year ago, now having to turn over to Bill O'Brien. And maybe after the season, we see what could be the breakup. I think more and more about the fact that we're headed that way because the Patriots haven't had back-to-back weeks like this since 1996. And that is not great for the GOAT and not great for Mac Jones because the Patriots could be in line at the end of the year, based on the way this ball club looks, for blue-chip talent in the draft because they don't have blue-chip talent across their roster. Davey Hudson joins us in studio. Davey, are you buying the fact that Belichick is leaving New England? I don't think he's retiring. Maybe he takes a year off. But I'm not buying the fact that he's out of football. I do think he's out of New England as Robert Kraft tries to move on.
This dynasty is officially dead. Some people probably put the nail in the coffin a couple of years ago after Brady moved on, but we've seen that for whatever reason, there are a multitude of things not working for this team. I don't anticipate them getting a win until November. You look at their next 3 opponents, they go on the road to Las Vegas. Now, if you remember last year, that was a crazy game at the end where they're tied and the Patriots decide to start lateraling the ball, and it gets returned for a touchdown.
And
they lose.
You're right. That's very unlike a Belichick team.
And then you follow that up with you go on the road, or you're at home against Buffalo, who looks like the class of the AFC East, and then you get to go down to Miami. So both those teams playing at a lot higher level than what we've seen the Patriots so far this year. So, I mean, 1-7, if there's no changes at that point, like Belichick's not going to get fired during the season.
No.
And he shouldn't be, given the history there.
And this won't be messy. This will be behind the scenes. But the fact that you have former players now, like Devin McCourty, who are on Football Night in America, and when he's asked, hey, what does Bill mean by starting? And he just throws his hands up, like, who the hell knows? Because that's how bad this team has been. Multiple analysts are saying that, this is going to be bad. Jason Garrett is sitting there just nodding his head. It's really, really bad. And I think the relationship between Belichick and Kraft has been trending this way over the last 12 to 16 months. We had Tom Curran on a month or so ago, and I went down that path with him because it's just a different vibe with the Patriots team we've seen, the Patriot way. It doesn't really resonate as the true and tried method to victory. And a lot of that is Brady. I get it. They've lost more games since he's left than is the amount of games while he was the starter in New England. It's tough to replace him. It should not be tough to replace the culture that's there, and that doesn't leave with one player. It has dissipated, and I think Kraft is tired of it.
I mean, it's one thing to not be a playoff team year in and year out, but to just become a bottom dweller like they are trending towards, it doesn't make sense given Belichick's pedigree and what they had been able to build in New England. I thought, bringing in Bill O'Brien would help out Mac Jones. If anything, he looks worse. Now, there's other problems on that offense than just him, but he's not a franchise quarterback, and he's proven that to us this year. You mentioned the defense scoring points of the 72-3 that they've been outscored the last 2 weeks. I'm watching 21 of those 72 just be by Mac Jones turning the ball over and handing it to the defense. It's bad all around, and there's nothing that they have or can do at the moment to make it any better.
I mean, Bailey Zappi, he was a fan favorite. It seemed like a coach's favorite a year ago. That was the rumor with Belichick, right? But then they cut him, meaning they were cool with the fact they at least were resigned to the fact that he could be claimed when they cut him in camp, and he wasn't. They get him back from the practice squad originally, but do they make a change? I think they just roll with it again. We'll see. But nothing's going to happen because they don't have the talent necessary to string together what seems to be like what's going on in Pittsburgh, for instance. Scratch Dallas from the top of the class when it comes to the NFL, because San Francisco shows you who the top of the class is, top shelf, the heavyweight 49ers. There are some other teams that are around their level, but San Francisco totally outcoached the Cowboys last night on Sunday Night Football. They were outscored, destroyed. And Sunday night, to me, is the example of why I shake my head at any criticism of Brock Purdy or the critics of Brock Purdy being a good quarterback in the NFL. He is good in this offense. It's more than this offense, though, that makes him good. Mechanics, he's always seen and finding the direction to go with the football. He knows where to go. He's accurate. Rhythm with the offense. He's a baller. It's hard to find where the critics continue to doubt him. If it were easy to just step in as a quarterback with Shanahan, and granted, he's done great work, I would present to you Trey Lance. If it's so easy to play quarterback in the 49ers offense, Trey Lance would still be the 49ers quarterback. Brock Purdy hasn't lost a regular season game. He's 10-0 in his career. He hasn't thrown an interception this season, and he's the quarterback of the best team in the NFL, hands down, and that includes the Philadelphia Eagles, who are the only unbeaten team remaining other than San Francisco. Both are 5-0. The Eagles are finding ways to win when not playing their best. San Francisco has picked up where they left off and then some, because they have a MVP caliber player in Christian McCaffrey, and they have one of the true young budding stars in the NFL in Brock Purdy, and they have so many ways to beat you, and I haven't even got to the defense yet.
You're looking at it. I mean, we just transitioned off of New England. I mean, this is the new dynasty in the NFL, if you want to make that comparison. An elite defense. You've got a quarterback that no one thought would be able to do anything, where it's like, we have this guy in place in Drew Bledsoe. Or going back to the Pats, you had Drew Bledsoe. He gets knocked out. He has to come in. Same thing. Jimmy Garoppolo gets knocked out. He's the guy you think that's going to be able to keep that franchise going, be that quarterback for at least the intermediate future. And then he's done. And then Brock Purdy comes in out of nowhere, and he is winning every single time. He looks comfortable. This team is just operating and firing on all cylinders, and it looks like the dynasty is already set in place. And you always talk about having a quarterback on a rookie deal. I mean, it doesn't get any cheaper for paying a quarterback than what the 49ers are having to do for Brock Purdy right now.
Yeah, they're paying him roughly $800,000 because of the seventh-round pick and Mr. Irrelevant. That's where he was slotted, and that's the benefit of hitting on that player, which is not going to happen that often. This is a generational type story, because you've got Brady and now you've got Purdy, and he's got a long way to go to be Brady. He's got a long way to go to lead this team to a dynasty discussion. I see what you're setting up there, but the second contract is where he's going to get paid, and that's where they have to make some decisions. But in the meantime, can they string together a Super Bowl victory? They are that caliber. Everyone knows that, but we continue to point to the quarterback position as when is the clock going to strike midnight? I'm not anticipating that anymore. A lot of people are. As for Dallas, we'll get to them later. Same old story. This is par for the course with Dak Prescott. The Colts beat the Titans 23-16 yesterday, and Zach Moss paired with Gardner Minshew, and Jonathan Taylor is back under an extended contract, $42 million, $24 million, I believe, $26 million guaranteed in this contract. He's back in the mix now. The initial diagnosis for Anthony Richardson, AC joint sprain. That's his throwing shoulder. MRI is happening today. X-rays yesterday were negative. But when Minshew has played, because, I mean, Richardson has been hurt quite a bit during games, running backs have at least 30 touches in those games. That's going to continue, and the strength only rises based on the fact that they get Jonathan Taylor back. And Moss, props to him, man. He ran all over the Titans defense. The Titans defense, Davey, had allowed just 280 yards total through their first 4 games. Yesterday, 165 by Zach Moss And paired with Taylor, they ran for 183. He stole the show. He had a 56-yard touchdown, but he also got the yards when it mattered. And it's extra impressive based on the Titans' run defense. That run defense, they were manhandled up front. And Indianapolis can find a way because they can run the football. And aside from, Jacksonville, who seems to be coming along, Indy is 3-2. And that's saying something considering where we thought they'd be for a quarterback that was supposed to be coming along. The best quarterback right now is Minshew, because while Richardson has all of the talent, all of the intangibles, Minshew is the experienced quarterback for a young team and a run-based franchise. He can make the throws, and he did against the Titans yesterday. The Titans head to 2-3. They also will face the Baltimore Ravens team coming off a loss headed to London. They've already made that trip. The Titans leave on Thursday. It's a big game in the AFC a week from now because it was a big loss for Tennessee and a massive win for Indy in the division.
It's coaching malpractice for you to lose to Zach Moss and a backup quarterback. I don't care who that backup is. And the Titans have a lot of questions they need to answer, but credit to Shane Steichen for getting his team ready and just absolutely dominating the Titans from the beginning of the game to the end.
Nathaniel Hackett's nightmare becomes a dream. That's something we dive into coming up with Dan Dockich. But when we come back, Dan Mullen, the college football weekend delivered. More craziness in the rankings, and we get Mullen's take. He weighs in next on Hot Mic with Hunter Withrow across the OutKick Network.
Now, yesterday, in the wake of the Trevor Bauer bombshell outing his accuser as a disgusting liar, I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today, I'm going to continue making that case. What was once born as a push to protect real victims has, in many cases, just like we saw with Bauer, turned into an awful manipulation tactic by immoral women to strip men of their power. And we, as a society, continue to just let it happen. Time and time again, it seems. Such also, as we have seen in the past, the cases of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who was on the brink of not being confirmed after being accused of sexual assault stemming from his college years. There was the 3 members of the Duke lacrosse team who were accused of raping a stripper at a party, and former Bills punter Matt Araiza, who was accused of gang rape. These are just 3 examples, all of which were proved to be untrue accusations. Men have been put through absolute torture. They have had massive opportunities stolen from them. Their lives, livelihoods, and reputations devastated solely because they were Me Too'd. Meaning a woman made a claim and it was accepted as a fact, even though in all of these cases, it was nothing but a lie. The believe all women era, no matter what, must end right now. Even Matt Araiza, who was still out of a job in the NFL, realizes the threat of it. Here's what he said after being released from the Bills following his untrue accusations.
It's just the climate of how things are now. Accusations bring so much hate to anyone who decides to stand by the accuser that they were kind of forced to cut me from the team.
Now, don't get me wrong. If you are a true victim, I implore you to find the courage to come forward under any and all circumstances. However, if the behavior with the accused man was consensual, let's say, if there is an ulterior motive, maybe a money grab, a play for attention, then please spare us. Don't take the legs out from under real victims who now will no doubt have become discredited because of stunts like the ones I just mentioned. Real victims should be absolutely furious. Just because a woman says something does not mean it should be assumed as fact. And to everyone out there, be careful. Save those receipts. Finally, I also see no reason to continue a movement to protect women when women don't even take the steps to protect themselves anymore. For example, self-proclaimed feminists all over the country are in favor of having biological men in their bathrooms, in their locker rooms, in their sorority houses, in their safe spaces, and even those who aren't outwardly in favor still neglect to stand up against things like this, despite the integration causing an inherent danger for all women. Look how Virginia dad Scott Smith was treated after he confronted the Loudoun County School Board in Virginia after his 15-year-old daughter was the victim of a brutal sexual assault by a transgender in a female bathroom. So how is this dad going to be attacked when he was standing up for his underage daughter? I don't understand it. Where is the concern for this girl's safety? Isn't this a Me Too concern considering she was sexually assaulted? No, it's not. And that is the problem right here, because you can't pick and choose which girls or women get protection under this awareness campaign. And on the flip side, who can be classified as an assailant?
Sixth and Peabody, our location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Chad's back with us on Wednesday. And coming up in 20 minutes, we've got Bobby Carpenter to weigh in with all of the big college football reaction and takes. We do that right now with former head coach in the SEC, Dan Mullen. You can catch him now as a solid analyst with ABC and ESPN. Coach, great to have you back on, man. Hope things are well.
Yeah, always good to be with you guys.
Yeah, man, same here. How would you stack the college football playoff right now? What 4 teams would be in?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, because there's so much to be played. But right now, I mean, you'd have to go with Michigan.
Yep.
I would go with Michigan. I would go with Georgia. I'd go with Oklahoma. And, at this point, you would go with Florida State. That'll probably change after this weekend with whoever wins the Washington-Oregon game. And I mean, the hardest one, I guess there's one team that you just look at who has good wins, and it's hard. Florida State and Oklahoma, I guess, have 2 good wins. So you want to go with those 2 teams for sure and then figure it out from there.
It has been a crazy season, man. What do you attribute this to? Is this just strictly the portal, NIL and the portal?
I think it's a lot of things. I think there's part with NIL. I think the portal actually has some things to do with it, with the transfer portal of evening things out for people. I think conference realignment is going to have a lot to do with it moving forward. I do. I think, but this is going to be a season. I really think at the end of the year, this is going to be a season I think it'll be the first time as well, or the first time of one of few, that all 4 playoff teams will be conference champions.
Yeah, it is trending that way. The conference championship games are going to carry a lot more weight. I am curious, though, if you have a 2-win conference champion in the or 2-loss conference champion in the SEC or the Big Ten, what happens with that?
I think you're out.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that would be amazing this year.
I think when you look at how things are going right now, right? I mean, you're going to say Oklahoma, Texas.
They'll meet again.
Oklahoma, to me, is playing with house money. They can afford even maybe a loss along the way if they beat Texas twice. The winner of that game, that's in. I have an interesting one for you in the ACC. Florida State doesn't play North Carolina. Neither of them play Louisville. All of them are undefeated right now. And, so you could have 3 undefeated teams in the ACC. Well, if you have 2 ACC teams that are undefeated playing for a conference championship, that's the Big 12 champ and the ACC champ are already locked in. That's 2 of the spots done. You have a hard time thinking anybody from the Big 10. Oh, my dog just got home.
Oh, nice. Give a shout out. What's his or her name?
Her name's Zuzu.
Nice.
So she just got a haircut, looking good today. But no, I do think the Big Ten, and then we get to the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten East champion is going to roll through the West. So that's 3 spots taken. Now you're down to the SEC champ or the Pac-12 champ. And the
Pac-12 champ they could beat up on each other based on what we're seeing.
I think you want the big freak out. You could have a 2-loss SEC West team.
Yep.
Roll in and beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. They're all out.
And you have Saban, who was going with the political angle, trying to, politicize the fact of 2 wins last year, all on the final play, wanted in. He'd be the conference champion in the scenario here. At least I think we're headed towards a Bama. Here we are all of a sudden on October 9th, and we're headed to Atlanta for the title game, and it seems like it's Georgia and Bama after all the talk about whether or not Bama was sliding back. They've rebounded well, and, I give credit to Milroe over the last 2 weeks with that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't count out LSU with that. I really wouldn't. And, they have one loss. They still get to play A&M in Texas. I think Ole Miss will slip up one more time. So that'll put them ahead of them. And, they're good. Oh, and when you watch LSU play, their defense is awful.
Yes.
But their offense is good enough to win games. And, when you're playing, it's going to be interesting that if all of a sudden LSU is not out of it, I think they could still sneak in and they could find a way to beat Alabama. They did last year. They could find a way to do it again.
You've coached a lot of great quarterbacks. Who's your Heisman favorite right now? And do you think this could be a Devontae Smith type season for a skill position player, given the fact that we'll have a handful of quarterbacks that could receive some votes?
Yeah, I just think there's too many good quarterbacks right now. Right now I would go with Michael Penix out of Washington. He's just been special. I think he has special receivers around him. He's going to have Heisman moments coming up with huge games. He plays the type of schedule where he's going to have the ability to make things happen at big moments. And if you go past him, Dylan Gabriel was really impressive last week. I thought, in his moment with the game on the line, I don't think he played his best game, but with the game on the line, he made the plays needed. Yeah. Statistically, he's going to continue to put up numbers. Drake May, and it puts up huge numbers. And Jordan Travis has put up big numbers with Florida State and winning. And so I think when you get into those quarterbacks, that's not even talking about Bo Nix, who has the opportunity to have special moments, and Caleb Williams, the defending winner. I just don't know if there's a position player out there yet that I've seen that's really worthy of where that is.
Could it be Brock Bowers? Could Brock Bowers be that guy?
I just don't. I think he's an excellent player. I just don't see him as a Heisman guy. He's their best offensive weapon on a loaded team. I don't see that from him as just that dominator of a player.
Dan Mullen, our guest.
I think he'll get votes. I do. I think, I saw the Kyle Pitts was a tight end that actually played for me that finished 10th a couple of years ago. So I think Brock Bowers in that category. Well, he'll be one of the top receiving tight ends, vote getters ever. But I just think there's too great a quarterback play, too many other great players out there.
Coach, take me through the mechanics of what happened, and it's I don't know how you explain it really with Miami and Georgia Tech. Cristobal not taking a knee. Even if that's the play call, how does no one in the headset in the chatter just say, "What are we doing here, guys? Just take the knee, and they're out of timeouts. We can handle this."
I think there's obviously some communication breakdown. There's someone who's in charge of clock management, right? And I think you assign it depending on your comfort level as a head coach, right? If you're the primary play caller as a head coach, you might want somebody else in the clock part of it all, just checking on those things.
And it's happened before. It's happened before to him.
Yeah, which is unbelievable.
I know.
But you're sitting in that situation, and here's what happened: is he goes in I was always the clock person throughout my career. All right. It was something I always paid attention to, and you would know, and it's simple, and there's a lot of simple math involved, right? So you're looking, and you're just sitting there, and you're saying, okay, we took over with the possession. They have one timeout left. By running plays, we can take 1 minute and 52 seconds off the clock, or what and I have to get my old chart out. But you go through and you review. Okay, if we take a knee, it's a minute 44 that you take it off the clock. Now, what the chart I'd always keep, and what you have is the clock on first down, second down, third down, because you don't know when they're going to take a timeout. You don't know when the timeout's going to expire. They might not take it. So now it's second down, even though they didn't take the timeout on first. You have one timeout at second down. There's 1:10 left in the game. Okay, game's over. take a knee. And in that scenario, even as a head coach, you had a timeout. The second that clock says 40 seconds, game's over. In reality, the second it says 42, it's over, you're taking a knee.
Yep.
If it's 44, you kind of run a play, but you run where the quarterback runs around in the back. But it's third down. That's not taking into account anywhere from 6 to 8 seconds you could burn off on fourth down, where you'd have a play where everyone kind of blocks going one way and you throw the ball as high as you can out of bounds. Those are scenarios that are practiced every single week. And in that situation, I'm watching live, and it's just head scratching. And with Mario, you have to know those scenarios. And there's somebody I was with Urban Meyer a long time as an assistant coach. That's why I guess I always knew it. When I was with him forever, I was the clock person. I was the offensive coordinator a lot, but I just had that because I was calling the plays. And so, it was, you always see the head coach throw the arms up in the air. That would be me saying to him, victory formation, and then he gets
that's what you play
signal
for.
And throw the arms in the air, but it's over at that point.
Yeah.
You can't explain it. I've been in situations in rivalry games where you have the ball on the 3-yard line up 10 points. And it's like, boy, we really want to just go shove it down their throat right now. It's victory time. Take a knee, go home, have a drink, celebrate.
No doubt, man. I'm eager to see how they respond to this, because the bench, the reactions on the sideline from the players too, they were dumbfounded with that. Dan Mullen, our guest, I'm going to get your take on Anthony Richardson, injured again. He's got the shoulder injury yesterday, rolling out, playing against the Titans. How, as his former coach, is this just how he's built? He's going to be this player. Practically every time you watch him play so far, well, he's getting dinged in some way.
Well, I think it goes. A couple years ago we had him. Every time I tried to start him, he would get hurt. And it kind of hurt our season. And we started the year with him as the backup because he got hurt in the spring game. But it was always trying to roll him on the field. How do I get him onto the field? How do we, build his confidence up? And then how do we get him into that starting role and start him? And I think every time we got to that point to make the move, he had a different injury. Now, granted, I think that happens sometimes to guys that, you got, he's not a Ford. He's a Ferrari.
Right, his skill set. You want to use his skill set.
He is a Ferrari, and they're a little bit different. They take a little bit different care. Now, the fact that, there's not many people that are 6'4", 250 pounds that run 4.3 and can do, physically, he's wired different than normal people. And just kind of like a Ferrari, those parts might break a little bit easier, where, I drive my Jeep Wrangler, I can go take that to Quickie Lube to get the oil change, but the Ferrari's got to go to the special shop for everything. But you know what? His last year in college, he stayed healthy the entire season. And so I think it's just something. I think it's something through his career too, as he continues to grow. He's still really young, and learning his body. And I think one of those things is to get to go to spend time as a veteran guy. You go spend time with the Tom Brady's of the world, or like a Ben Roethlisberger, or these guys that
it's a skill
that played and say, okay, talk to me. I don't have to go bench like everybody else. What am I doing to build body stability to get me through my career and what I need to do? Because both plays were, it's not, I didn't see either play as like an overuse or he's just running the ball over people constantly. So I think that's something that he's going to have to grow with during his career to learn how to do. And it was, something that he did deal with in college as well.
About a minute left here, Coach. Knowing quarterbacks as well as you do, what do you see in Brock Purdy, and how surprised are you with what he's doing with the 49ers?
Well, watching the telecast last night, it was really interesting that Chris Collinsworth brought up something that the most important trait of a quarterback to me, right? Really, I mean, the third to me, mental physical toughness, one. Well, Brock Purdy has that. Very few guys you're not getting in the NFL with that. Leadership, he has that. Those are check. Number 3 is processing information.
Yeah.
It's not throwing, it's not running, it's not intelligence, it's processing information. How fast can you process information? And Brock Purdy can process, they've talked about it. He processes things so quickly, right? I mean, any great quarterback, the hardest thing to test, you go to a combine, hey, you can run, you can jump, you can throw, you can make this throw, you can make that throw, I can work you out, do these things. How fast does information go from your eyes, and then from your eyes to your brain, right? How fast that information, eyes to brain, then brain to your arm, legs, whatever needs to get done. How fast can you process information? Well, great quarterbacks process information at an extremely high level. And Brock Purdy, watching that, they brought that up in the telecast. I think that's something that their coaching staff realized to know. He has the mental, physical toughness. He has leadership. He has the talent with the arm talent, but there are a lot of people with arm talent, but he processes information. And then you throw on top of that, he's extremely intelligent to run a complex offense.
Coach.
So, he has all of the 4 non-football, non-skill set traits that make up great quarterbacks.
Coach Dan Mullen has been our guest. Always great to catch up with you, Coach. Bobby Carpenter is next.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well.
Yeah.
And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. That's where you can find them. You can find Bobby Carpenter next to some beer quite often, I'm sure. B-Carp 3 joins us. College football discussion today. Bobby, good to see you, man. It's been a while. How are you?
It has been a while. I mean, apparently you and Withrow can't work at the same time anymore, so I just have to share back and forth. And I apologize, for not having the backdrop that I normally have.
Yeah.
I'm here at the NBC Suites down in Orlando, getting ready to speak to the Touchdown Club about some of the happenings and the going on of college football.
A lot is happening. By the way, Chad is with the Withrow Men. There's a Withrow Men retreat or a trip that they do annually. How about that?
That sounds pretty good. But I'm going to
agree.
be honest. Is his family? Are they not football fans? They?
Oh, they departed after the football games were completed.
Okay, all right.
They do it right.
I've always been of the belief, during football season, once August 1st starts, that maybe this is just due to being in the game for so long, and my dad being a coach and everything else. August 1st to January 1, unless you're traveling for football or it's a big, some type of decade milestone birthday or something like that. There's really no vacations that are going to be planned.
Definitely no weddings.
Months.
No weddings.
No. If you're going to plan a wedding, during the fall, just be prepared that the friends of yours who are involved in the media or involved in football, hey, I'll send you a gift. I'll tell you congrats. But if you think I'm selfish for choosing this over you, well, you should have thought about that before you made it in the fall.
Bobby Carpenter, our guest on the Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Is Michigan deserving of being number one right now?
It's a tough question because we still, just due to the asymmetry in college scheduling, I think they're really good. But I look at who they played. Ohio State just played Maryland. I think Maryland's probably the fourth best team, maybe the Big Ten, maybe fifth, depending on how what Wisconsin potentially looks like. But I don't think Michigan's played anyone near as good as Maryland yet. And so while they've been dominating, they look like a complete team. When J.J. McCarthy's humming, they've got a nice passing game. He can extend plays with his legs. Their receivers look confident. They've always been able to run the ball. Their defense is really good. Jim Harbaugh seems like he's backing on a tear. So I would put them in that short list. But right now, Hutton, after what I just watched happen with Texas, who I thought could be potentially the best team, I was starting to get there with them. And then all of a sudden they lose to Oklahoma. It's okay, I'm not sure what the heck I knew. At the beginning of the season, I thought LSU was in that mix.
Yep.
I thought Texas was definitely in there. I thought Bama was in there. And now I'm looking, okay, Bama fell back, but they're getting better. LSU, well, they're kind of meandering around. Georgia, I think, is still really good, but there's still some inconsistencies with them. When they want to play, they're a really darn good football team. But then also there's times you're we got a really bad half here. But I think that's kind of the case for really almost all of the teams in the top, 7 to 10.
Everyone seems beatable. Texas, we thought they were that team. They still can be. I think we're headed towards a rematch in the Big 12 championship game. But again, who knows? But what a win for Brent Venables at Oklahoma, because I have not given the Sooners enough credit. I've been focused on the Longhorns based on their win against Bama. It looked their win against Bama, then we see Bama go down to South Florida and what happened there in an ugly game. But since then, Bama is finding a way. A&M's game plan of making Milroe beat them, that's what they did, and Milroe did just that despite the 14 penalties and everything else that the Tide ends up, they do that weekly, it seems. I don't know who to believe in right now. It's week to week, and this week, Oklahoma, they have my attention.
I mean, so you think a lot of the truths that we've held over the last 3 to 5 years, maybe even longer than that with some of these coaches. I mean, one of the things is Bama, they don't beat themselves. They're not going to commit bad turnovers. They're not going to have penalties. They're not a team that might be flashy, but they're just going to be really consistent and wear you down. That is the furthest thing from the truth. We've always believed, that the Pac-12 probably wasn't very good. And all of a sudden now you're like, well, I mean, you can make an argument that Oregon is maybe one of the best teams. You thought with Oklahoma, you talking to them. I mean, there were conversations this offseason where it's like, well, if Venables doesn't turn this thing around quickly enough, think of how bad that it could potentially be, and they may have to move on from him. So there were some massive issues across college football. For the last 5 years, Ohio State's had a great offense. Well, offense looks so-so right now, but the defense is really what's winning the day. So it's not only just the fact that the teams have been tossed around, it's the fact that how these teams look is so foreign to us.
Ohio State's win over Notre Dame. What's your perspective of that victory now compared to 2 weeks ago?
It hasn't changed a ton. I mean, Sam Hartman, obviously, he threw 3 interceptions. He's never really played Louisville all that well, even going back to his time at Wake. I want to see how Notre Dame plays against USC. Because if you look at it, Hutton, I mean, they had, 4 or 5 straight night games. They're playing ranked opponents every week. I mean, it was a murderer's row. And I watched that Duke game, I'm thinking, man, there's one team here that looks like they are emotionally ready to go. And I'm looking at another team that looks like they've been drugged through it for the past 3 or 4 weeks. And so hopefully this is maybe a recalibration. You'll be able to have USC coming to South Bend. And I think Notre Dame, if they pull off that Ohio State game plan, because USC ain't stopping you at all. And you say, hey, we're going to give you 8 possessions. We'll see if you can score a touchdown on 4 of them. And I think we can score a touchdown on 5. And that's how we're going to beat you.
Yeah, and I think LSU, you could approach them the same way, right? That's my hesitant approach with both of those programs. I love their offenses. They're fun to watch, but they're just not championship caliber. They could be. They're not to me based on their defense. That's what's going. Look at and I realize Ohio State and Georgia put on a show in the college football playoff a year ago. But the defenses, when it mattered, made some big plays along the way. And I don't think USC or LSU's defenses can do that.
Well, at least to this point, they've proven that they can't. You don't. The days of needing a top 5 defense to win a national championship, I think, are done. But you still have to have, to your point, a defense that can get timely stops.
One stop.
You just can't. Yeah, you've got to find a way to get them when you get a team in a 2nd and 17 or a 3rd and 14, you have to find a way to ultimately get off the field. And talking about things that we knew, I never thought I would see a day where LSU is this prolific on offense and their defense is this bad. They've always been the team that offensively maybe struggles with great playmakers and maybe doesn't have a quarterback or scheme. And the defense is the one that wins the day. And their defense cannot stop anyone right now. And that's as befuddling as anything.
When you saw Mario Cristobal screw this clock up, again, this has happened before in a game against Stanford when he was at Oregon. When you saw that, and I'm also paying attention to the reaction on the bench from Miami players. What are you thinking? And what do you think they're believing as they move forward now after that malpractice from the head coach again?
I mean, it doesn't really make sense when you look at it. I don't know how you can get there. And I guess this is just being, a product of, being with Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick, and it's all situational football. And I mean, we're going back to high school football. I'd sit there and I'd talk to my dad.
Yeah.
I was his game manager. Hey, there's 2:20 on the clock. They don't have any timeouts. Let's start planning about how to make sure we bleed this thing down, how much time they can get back with. I mean, all you've got to do is and I get really upset with coaches. It drives me nuts because people always want to do it before the half and sometimes before end of game if it's a tie game, and especially low scoring where they're like, hey, there's 30 seconds left. I'm like, guys, just knee it out. They're like, no, let's run it and see what happens. I go, okay, best case scenario, you pop a 70-yarder for a touchdown. Odds of that are fractional percentage. Mostly nothing. There's probably a 4 or 5% chance that you fumbled the ball or something bad happens. which is what we saw with Mario Cristobal. And so granted, they shouldn't have fumbled. They shouldn't have given up, 2 plays of whatever the
That's
heck,
right.
70-some
Make
yards.
one tackle.
But it shouldn't have gotten to that point because simply due to math. We're talking not football. We're talking about math now and being able to read a clock and understand what's going on.
It's a great point about even in high school. I mean, every fan knows what the victory formation sign is. You may not know, the terminology for if you're changing a play at the line of scrimmage for left or right, if you hear that cadence. But the victory formation. Everyone is just like dumbfounded at what has happened. And not once, but twice now with Cristobal. Hey, Bobby Carpenter with us. Follow him on social at bcarp3. You can catch him on SiriusXM Channel 84. Great college football analyst. Mel Tucker and Pat Fitzgerald, do both have convincing arguments for wrongful termination based on what we've seen over the last week and a half?
Well, I think they're very different situations, and they'll probably get into this tonight with the Touchdown Club here.
Okay.
I think one school didn't want to fire their coach, and I think one school was looking for every reason to fire their coach. And if you go back and look at Pat Fitzgerald, they're like, hey, here's the information. This is what happened. We agree on this 2-week suspension in the middle of the summer. I mean, whatever that means, we'll deal with it internally, essentially. And then the other coach was like, hey, we paid this guy a ton of money. I don't think he's going to be worth it. He's doing some things that are maybe on the fringe. Without getting too deep into some things up there, like what's going on, I think they were pursuing this. And I know Clay's been, advocate that this is kind of a hit piece. And you know what? It may be. But I'll also tell you this. If someone owes you a lot of money, and the only way they can get it from you is by you putting yourself in bad situations off of the field or outside of your job responsibility, don't give people any ammunition. And I think that's what Mel did in this situation.
Yeah, especially with the contract language, man. Like, they just reading through, it engages in any conduct which constitutes moral turpitude or, in the university's sole judgment, would tend to bring public disrespect, contempt, or ridicule upon the university. I mean, that language alone, you can come up with any reason you want to get rid of him and go into that clause. I mean, it's very, very vague and broad.
Well, and when you have a couple of guys, at least to my knowledge of the situation, that own NBA franchises who have footed a lot of this bill, and it's like, hey, we need to bring in a new coach. We don't want to pay this guy and pay the next guy, and there's some things going on. We're going to try to pursue this and figure it out. And I think that that's ultimately what it's been happening. You talk about the clause of the sole discretion of the university. I mean, you can fight that in court if you haven't done anything, but I think there's some other stuff up there that, Michigan State feels pretty confident in that, you know what, maybe we'll settle out of court, but you're not getting the full 80. You might get a little piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen and reading from the attorney's end on Tucker's side, though, man, it's, again, I just shake my head and think, man, there will be lawyers, and you better believe he's fighting over the $80 million. Maybe not $80,000, but $80 million, getting after it.
Well, here's the reality. Those are the guys they're the winners in this whole thing. The attorneys are the ones that are going to probably make the most out of this whole deal. I mean, Mel will get it. He will get a chunk, and they'll probably be willing to settle, but they're definitely not settling for 80. They'll find somewhere in the middle, probably a lot closer to 0 than 80.
Hey, tell me about this quarterback club. What does all this entail? What do you have on store tonight?
There's been a bunch of guys from the SEC that have come down. There's a bunch of Buckeyes that reside in Orlando, and they've been wanting me to do it here for a couple of years, and it worked out. So heading over there tonight, talk about college football, all the things we're hitting on here, transfer portal, everything else. It's like, give me a list of questions. Like, I could talk for an hour about what I want to talk about, but why don't you guys tell me what you want to talk about, and then I'll build some things around it.
Hey, 1 minute left here. How many questions do you think you'll get about Penn State? And are we sleeping on the Nittany Lions playing a massive factor in all of this?
I think I'll get a couple. And I think Penn State obviously is a very good team, but there's also some canary in the coal mine a little bit. They've got a lot of offensive numbers, but heading into last week, they were only 10th in yards per play in the Big Ten. So you're getting put in good situations by your defense. You've been able to score. I don't think they played the toughest schedule yet, but they haven't really been as explosive as maybe what people think.
Yeah, but they've got a young quarterback that's been on the road, though, in conference, won games. I mean, I'm intrigued to see if James Franklin can pull this off, unlike some past years where you just know they're the third best. They have a chance to climb the ladder this year. They'll get their shot. And if nothing else, they get a chance to mess some things up for Ohio State or Michigan. We'll see. Bobby, always great to see you, man. Have a great time in Florida, and we'll catch you up soon.
Thanks, Hutton. I appreciate it.
Hey, man. Bobby Carpenter, the best, at BCarp3 on social. Find him there, and again, SiriusXM Channel 84. Coming up, Dan Dakich. We're going to hit the headlines across football, across the sports weekend. Host of Don't At Me, right here across the OutKick Network. Dakich is next. Anthony Richardson is hurt. Jonathan Taylor gets a contract, and we've got plenty more discussion. Sean Payton and honesty versus reality. That came fast for him this weekend.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. Blowing a lead and losing a game is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Taste the Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Monday edition is here for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us. 6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Coming up, we've got college football rapid reaction. Name some teams, discuss just initial impression halfway through the season. As October has arrived, the moving month has arrived for both the NFL and college, and discussion plenty coming up. An hour from now, Bernard Pollard, former NFL safety of the Ravens, Chiefs, and Titans, he'll join us here on Hot Mike. And right now we say hello to Dan the Man Dockich. Another award-winning program this morning for Don't At Me with Dan Dockich across the OutKick Network. Nice enough to join us today. Dan, good to see you, man. Hope things are well.
Yeah, Indiana's all excited, man. The Indianapolis is rolling. The Colts got a win over the Titans, and that's who Jimmy Irsay wants to beat seemingly more than anybody. So, you know what? We're all happy here.
Are you happy with Anthony Richardson getting hurt with the shoulder sprain? And
no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because you were – so you and I was on Don't At Me this morning, and you made brief mention of the fact that you're pissed off for greatness over the play call itself. Richardson can't just finish a game, can he?
No, and you got to help him. You know, he was 9 for 11. I get, people don't watch, and they go by a narrative that he can't throw. And the 2 he missed, okay, he missed. But the dude's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Dropping back to pass, And so all of a sudden you got a running back that's rocking and rolling in Zach Moss. He's going to gain 160. You got a back up there, and you're going to roll this guy out and with no pass option. Like the old single wing, you hike it to the best player and make him sweep right or sweep left. It was idiotic, and it infuriated me because, you know what, Jonathan, we'd been through this with Luck. People ridiculously said that Luck didn't have an offensive line. Well, that was idiotic. Luck was taught, not only did he have a pretty good line, but he was taught by professional baseball players how to slide. He was taught 3 things: slide, throw it away, or run out of bounds. And he refused to do it. And he took on linebackers, and he tore up his spleen when actually he had a 4th option in that particular play, which was hit an open receiver. But so now here we are in Indy, and whether it's the offensive coordinator, the head coach, whoever, they call a direct run, and it's just idiotic. Fine, you want to roll him out? Great. If he's going to run out of the pocket, fantastic. But to call a called run to the right side, open field, it's just stupid. And I'm telling you, now he's got the AC joint. I got the AC joint. I guarantee you, he's going to have surgery. Once it comes out once, I experienced this, it comes out more and more and more. It's like it broke the seal. So eventually he's going to have surgery on the shoulder.
And that's his throwing shoulder, too.
Yeah,
throwing shoulder, which sucks, too.
Yeah, it's the dumbest. I've got no patience for Colts stupid. They won, yay, Rob, 3-2, good for them. They got Jacksonville, chance to, really make a move in the division, avenge a loss. But damn, was that stupid. And now, Gardner Minshew's fine. He's all right. But he's a backup for a reason. And our guy is Richardson. And now because of an idiotic coaching decision, he's out.
Backup running back looks pretty good. Zach Moss. Jonathan Taylor gets $41 million. 26 guaranteed. He becomes the first running back to land a long-term contract worth $10 million or more per year, that is, since Nick Chubb, and that was, nearly 800 days ago. Why did the Colts decide to go about it this way instead of the way that we've seen other teams handle the running back spot with the players that want the bag?
Well, Jimmy Irsay said all along, I'm not trading them. And then it became, I'm not trading them unless I can get stupid value. Maybe Calvin Ridley, Justin Jefferson, I don't know. But, it's like me saying I want hair. It's just not going to happen. So the idea of trading him was kind of out the door. They love the kid. They really do. And I think reports of this schism were greatly exaggerated. Both sides did what they have to do. Both sides.
Posturing.
So think about it, Jimmy Irsay's got to say what he's got to say. And you know what? I said this all along. Money's going to talk here. Money's going to talk. Deebo Samuel, money talked, right? Josh Jacobs, he was on a plane out of town. He's back in the fold. Saquon Barkley, he was out of town. He's back in the fold. Money's going to talk, and it's just a matter of how much Jimmy was going to go to. And we kind of thought all along that Jimmy Irsay was going to go 12, maybe 13 million. Ended up being a good deal for Jonathan Taylor, but I got to tell you, man, Jonathan Taylor getting a little Wally pipped here. Zach Moss looks legit. Zach Moss gets through the hole quick. Zach Moss is tough inside. Nice to have two weapons. We'll see what they do. But, again, that's another reason I was blanked off about running freaking Richardson. Honest to God, you got two running backs. Let's go. Use those guys to run. I don't know. But hey, look, it's good for the Colts. Now they got a couple weapons.
Hey, and for those that don't think he can throw, just go back and watch the throw he made to Josh Downs, opposite sideline. Beautiful throw in the first half. Sean Payton, honesty versus reality, Dan. I love the honesty from Sean Payton about the Denver situation last year. I don't think he said anything that was false, by the way. It was how he went about it, and we discussed the coaching code. How about the way things have turned out? Because consider it from Nathaniel Hackett's perspective. He was stunned that this got out, and it happened in the training camp of the preseason. He admitted that. He's like, I thought this would come in week 5. And by week 5, not only does he not have Aaron Rodgers going to Mile High, he has all the support of his locker room, and he goes and wins with Zach Wilson, where all of a sudden there's a narrative that the Jets could be a playoff team. The 7th wild card with Zach Wilson, and they're playing the Denver defense, and they're playing Sean Payton, who talked crap this offseason.
Karma's a mother in sports, man. Hey, look, okay.
It is.
You know, I don't even know if there's a code. It's almost like in any business. You take over a job, the job's open for a reason. Everybody knows what happened before wasn't good enough, or else the Denver Broncos job would not be open, right? And so all of a sudden, Peyton decides that he's going to, I guess,
he had his choice.
Think he's going to make himself look good. You know, you're going to make yourself look good, but really you make yourself look petty. I really believe that. Nathaniel Hackett didn't do the job. Nathaniel Hackett got off to a terrible start with clock management and a bunch of different things, and he could never recover for it. Team was bad. Wilson was bad. But when you say that, fine, but you better back it up. You better do what you're saying you're going to do, which is do everything the opposite. Well, if you want to know the truth, they've actually done it worse. Look, I'm going back to the 60s last time somebody dropped 70 on a team in the NFL. I'm looking at Nathaniel Hackett on the other sideline after, as you said, Zach Wilson drops 31. And this, ladies and gentlemen, was in Denver. Now, I don't know how many, well, I do know how many, about 2 home games you can lay an egg in and still have the people believe in what you're doing. You go on the road, people watching on TV, it's a little different than when you do it at home. And that was a absolute egg. Look, bottom line is simple. I'm all in on talking. You want to talk, but you better back it up. And they did not back it up. In fact, I would argue that they've made that situation worse. And I would also argue that because of what Peyton did, he made it kind of a laughingstock.
Dan Dockich with us, host of Don't At Me across the OutKick Network. Mornings here is where you can find him streaming live. Speaking of situations and making it worse, Mario Cristobal at Miami. From this angle, do you, when you see that, do you think of a moment in your coaching career where you're like, man, I've got a gaffe that, you know, is just a terrible spot that I was in? Or do you think, how in the bleep do you allow this to happen? Not once, but twice with clock management, the fact you take a knee and you win the game with the victory formation.
Well, both. I don't know how it could happen. I had one at Buffalo. Game's over. We hold them. Referee says game's over. Okay. So I go to shake the other coach's hand. He's yelling at the officials. 2 of the officials walk out. I walk off with them. And this is at Buffalo. We got a 6-hour flight home. I go back. Now, the locker room was about a quarter mile down. My players come running off. I go, hey, get in the shower.
Yeah, shower pill. Let's go.
Get going. I walked off the court with the official. 2 of the 3 officials walked off. All of a sudden, the official comes down, and he says, hey, there's 0.6 seconds. The game wasn't over. It was a shot clock violation. I go, I just walked off with you. You said the game was over. So my players were running back, no shoes on. Kid hits 2 free throws because they called a technical on me. It goes overtime. We lose the game. I still feel terrible about it. And if I could have, the official was like, Dan, I'm so sorry. I know. We said game was over. You walked out. I said, that's fine. But why are you calling a technical on me? Because that's what you did.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. So, yes, yes, I've had a moment like that, and it's something that every year I think some guy who's a blogger in the Toledo area reminds me of. And I could never get the official to privately, he admitted all this, but I could never get him publicly to get me off the hook, right? But no, you know what? Hey, I don't know if you saw this, but Alabama did the same thing. Alabama on first down, when they could have taken a knee and ran out the clock, Milroe throw a little pass to the left side that went down, and I'm sitting there screaming. Next thing you know, who were they playing? Who was Alabama just playing? I was watching the game. Who did they just beat? Yeah, A&M got the ball back when they would have never got the ball back. Take a knee. Take a knee and never go to the shower with a referee. Yeah. Never have your players shower. Just get on the bus.
Yeah, and you can tell Saban's reaction on the bench on the sideline was something else too. Right after that game, and at least in your situation, Dan, you had a reason to be pissed off at the fact that you walked out. Well, Cristobal, this seems like something that just follows you, and it absolutely it doesn't end well from the fan base perspective or from the program perspective in the athletic department.
The only way you get over that is you go win the rest of your games, win a national championship, because that's following you forever.
Hey,
that is incredible.
You've got fans everywhere. In high school, the victory formation sign. That should be you should be able to fire with cause based on that. If you can't, if someone sitting at home could figure that out 99% of the time.
Well, the truth is, you should want to get to the victory formation.
Yes, that's your goal.
Think about it. Teams should make the mistake the other way. Like, no, don't take a knee yet. The math doesn't add up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Like, they should do that as opposed to look at the clock and go 40 plus 40 is 80 plus 40 is 120. That means it's, 2 minutes. There's less than 2 minutes. We're good. And they don't have a timeout. So anyway, I saw that. And you know what? Hey, honest to God, Jonathan, honest to God, he knew as a coach, I swear to God, every coach on that sideline knew once they made that mistake, you knew the other team was going down and scoring. I don't care. The gods, the football gods are ruthless. And they're like, hey, look, we're going down and scoring. This is going to cost you. Screw you. Figure it out the next time.
Dan Dockich with us. Yeah, you're right. And we're harping on that. Make one tackle and the game's also over.
Right,
Dan, reports are the Big 12 realignment. There's interest in about adding Gonzaga for hoops. What do you think of this just for college basketball and a move for Gonzaga to the conference just for hoops?
I think it's great for Gonzaga. I got to believe it's great for them. The exposure will be off the charts, and, they'll get TV money. I don't understand it for the Big 12, I guess.
It's a great hoops, it's a great hoops conference right now, right?
It's about the best that there is right now. Yeah, and it would be even better. I guess it's great. I don't know. It seems like what a great thing for Gonzaga. I mean, you're stuck in the Northwest. You watch games. Think about Gonzaga, truthfully. Mm-hmm. Gonzaga has 2 seasons, the preseason and the postseason. Nobody cares about who they beat. They're in the middle of it, right? I mean, you care about when they're at Maui. You care about when they're in the Bahamas. You care about Feast Week. You care about when, they're playing Duke on national TV in December or whatever.
Or Kentucky.
And then they get in their conference and they're at in Kentucky. Then they get in their conference and they're beating Santa Clara, and maybe St. Mary shows up on ESPN3 some night, but you don't care. And then the tournament comes and they're 28-1. And they get a 1 seed, and next thing you know, you're watching them. So this would put them with big boy basketball, and I would be fascinated to see if they can continue that kind of success. Let me tell you, there's no way they can continue that kind of success in terms of winning conference titles. That ain't happening, and they won't get the number 1 seeds. But I got to tell you, for them, money-wise, I got to believe the Big 12. For them, exposure-wise, elevating the entire school, I suppose. Hey, it's a great thing. It's a small Catholic school, in the Northwest. How big do they want to get? I don't know.
I mean, they've been number 1. They've been the number 1 seed where they are. That's but hey, money talks.
Yeah.
Money talks with all this. Final minute here. Dan Enos at Arkansas, the OC, emailing students for emailing him, and he's emailing back from the Arkansas email account with the university. Freedom of Information Act. At a request that pops up, do you have Do you have a situation? You've got to have a story where you wanted to fire back at someone over the years, and I'm guessing you probably have. Maybe not from the official email account, though.
No, but I became like friends with some of the student reporters one time, Jonathan.
Okay.
Like I would take them out. I would take them out to lunch. They were great kids. And Nick Herm and Pete Stella. One of them wanted to work out with my team, so I said, "Here you go." And he ended up puking. Anyway,
he knew he would.
They came to interview me, and Nick left his book bag. So I waited 2 weeks. He never came to get his book bag again. So I left him a message on his answering machine. "Hey, you dumbass, what the are you doing? Are you really in school, or are you just some, blah blah blah?" Well, he put it as his answering machine message. Right? This is way back.
That's awesome.
So whenever I hear he'll email me once in a while, or he'll on Twitter. He goes, "Hey, Coach, I still have that message saved, on the little tape that you had on your answering machine back in the day." No, you don't email students. Hell no. Look, if I was coaching,
you gotta have a burner.
I
You gotta have a burner.
People.
Yeah, Dan.
No.
Dan.
You're making $750,000. You leave students alone.
You also leave Dan alone. Don't at Dan Dockich. Don't at me with Dan Dockich. Mornings right here on the OutKick Network. Always great, man. Good to see you. Great visit this morning. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks for being on my show. Thank you, buddy.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Same here, man. Dan Dockich, the great Dan Dockich. Coming up, college football rapid fire reaction. We'll name a team and give us our thoughts.
The idea that we believe all women is total nonsense. As I told you, my sister, a 25-year prosecutor, made that very clear to not only me, but certainly her son, my son, and my nephew Pete. They're all the same age, these boys. But she also warned him of women like this cretin here, this gold diggings clown that decided, "I'm going to get my hooks into a big league ball player." I mean, look, big league ball players are dumb sometimes, but everybody's dumb sometimes. And Trevor Bauer, a guy named John Heyman, wrote an article which was titled, "Bauer Has Lost His Career and Deservedly So." You'll never hear John Heyman, who by all accounts is a famous baseball writer, apologize. You will never hear any of these fools apologize because our print media is the worst. Now, we're lucky here at OutKick that we have great people. But the national print media, the dudes that are out there, the Greg Doyles of the world, the John Heymans of the world, the Dana Bembaus of the world, this Molly Knight, who reported that this woman had a fractured skull. That's right. This idiot Molly Knight works for The Atlantic, and she got fired, I guess, I don't know. Molly Knight is her name, not Wright, Knight. She, honest to God, wrote that this girl got her skull fractured. I looked up Molly Knight. Molly Knight is now basically unemployed, and of course, her Twitter is protected. Of course it is. This lady, Molly Knight, is a ridiculous fraud for printing that. It's all in The Athletic. It's in the affidavit. This woman, of course, went cowardly like all writers do when they're wrong. Ain't nothing wrong with John Heyman or Molly Knight coming out and saying, "Hey, what can I tell you? I got it wrong." But they can't do it. They can't do it because they're little posses that get a little bit of power and they don't know how to handle it. John Heyman is a little scrawny guy like Doyle that got a little bit of suck as they've gotten older, a little bit. And like politicians, they don't know how to handle it. They're the worst of the absolute worst. I got a guy from Iowa telling me, "No, there's some really good writers." Yeah, Armando is. Yeah, the guys that write here are. But we're not bound by the same stupidity of USA Today. We're not governed. You can write freely here, and you can write the truth without fear of retribution as long as it's the truth. Can't do that in mainstream media, or they won't do that in mainstream media. There's got to be a bias. There's got to be an angle. There's got to be a push. If you're a woman, there's got to be a push. If you're black, got to be a push. If you're white, got to be a push. Got to be some kind of bias. I learned the other day, this was pretty funny. I know that if you do not agree with the liberal side, you will be called a name. I got a family member that calls me far right. I'm like, really? I don't even know what that means, but I get it. You're a liberal, so I'm far right. You got to call me a name. The world is insane. Good for Trevor Bauer. Cubs, sign Trevor Bauer. I'll wear a damn Trevor Bauer jersey. And you can kiss my backside on any of them. Any of them.
Glad you're with us. Coming up in about 40 minutes, Bernard Pollard. He brings it. He'll be pissed off for greatness with what's going on across the NFL. Hard-hitting safety, Ravens, Titans, Chiefs, a lot to discuss. That's in the final hour. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Our thanks to Dan Dockich, Dan Mullen, Bobby Carpenter, Chad Withrow. A well-deserved day off. He's back with us on Wednesday. PointsBet, hey, Monday Night Football coming up this evening. Raiders hosting the Packers. Get to my picks coming up. We need a winner this evening. If you haven't taken your shot with PointsBet, now's the perfect moment. The big reason why, well, exclusively for first-time PointsBet users, grab this unique offer. Right now, new PointsBet users can get up to $1,000 in second-chance bets. If your first bet doesn't go as planned, PointsBet has your back with a second chance. You get this offer by visiting OutKick.com/bet. OutKick.com/bet. is where you head. You complete the registration process there with PointsBet. Make your first bet. If your first bet happens to lose, well, second chance. That's where that comes into play for your bet. Remember, terms and conditions apply. You got to be 21 or older in legal gambling states. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. OutKick.com/bet is where you can go to grab this great offer. There are stat padding opportunities. Players and coaches take full advantage of it. Davey Hudson joins us in studio. Davey, there's stat padding and then stat saving, and that's a theory that's going around about Shedeur Sanders in Colorado right now based on his, completion percentage?
That is the case, and this was an anonymous coach quote, but this is not one of those things you just make up to make up. But the theory is that Shedeur Sanders is helping his completion percentage stay higher by taking sacks when he simply should just throw the ball away. Now, before Saturday's game, I believe he has taken 25 sacks in 5 games, which obviously is a high number. Now, you could argue that Colorado putting this offensive line together kind of across the summer, not really.
They have to get better up front, and that's where the transfer portal will help them.
But he was averaging, I believe it was like a 74% completion percentage prior to Saturday's game. After the struggle against Arizona State, that's down to 72.1, I believe is what he's currently sitting at.
And he's top 10 in that category in college football. I'm sure 72 is probably right around there if he was 7th or 8th going into the game.
Well, and prior to that game, he was 5th in pass attempts. So he's obviously throwing it a ton to where, that number is pretty eye-popping whenever you look at the rate in which he's passing and then just how successful he has been.
Yeah, so the full quote from the anonymous, put your name behind this.
Well, that's the thing.
Your name, with The Athletic. Go ahead.
I was going to say, a lot of times, none of these coaches want to ever speak out.
But this is instead of if you have a source, you can turn this into an opinion or a potential theory that's going around instead of quoting because to me that's trying to get into the head of Shedeur and Dion. To me, now I don't put it past them. But here's the quote. I think they want to rack up some stats for Shedeur. They're doing that already, by the way. That's not the quote. I'm adding this in. I think they want to rack up some stats for Shedeur. He really holds on to the ball a long time. I think he takes sacks because he doesn't want to affect his completion percentage. He's playing a little different than he did earlier in the season. Before, he showed that he was willing to step up and escape through B gaps. Now he's retreating more. that from the anonymous assistant. I mean, as much chatter that's been going on from, let's see, Oregon, Colorado State. We certainly know TCU was caught off guard. I don't know why, you've got the anonymous assistant coach that won't chime in on this. Maybe, I'm assuming, Davey, this is an upcoming opponent, not one they've played.
Yeah, definitely somebody in the Pac-12. The big thing I have for
now the chatter's internal, right? They're going to be asked about this, but they don't know who is saying all this.
I love that they're just throwing this theory out there, which, I mean, it does look a lot better when you look at it at the end of the day. And obviously we could go back, we could examine each and every sack and be, all right, coverage sack, should he have just thrown this away? Did he not see the guy coming? Did he, just kind of sizing him up from an athletic standpoint? Do you think you're going to be able to outrun this? I mean, Shedur's definitely surpassed my standards of what I thought was going to happen with this team going in.
Same. And it's not like I don't know if stat padding for what, for another Bentley or whatever he's driving. Like, I don't, it's not the Heisman. It's not the Heisman. I mean, that Colorado's game this past weekend, I like what Deion said post-game. I mean, he's very open and honest about how they play. He's like, happy to get the win, but this is some BS that we're doing. We got to get over this. Like, it would be different if there's still a national storyline and he's competing against another quarterback for the Heisman at the end of the year. I just don't think completion percentage is going to weigh a ton into the national perspective on who's the best player in college football.
No, I agree. And I think the big reason and the broader point here is they're actually going at Deion through Shedur with this comment and saying, like, oh, he's just out there to protect his son, make him look better for the NFL scouts, and it's going to help his draft stock in some way. I think that's
it's also but it's also easy just to say we're helping him by the BGAT comment.
Yeah.
We're not getting him hurt. Like, we're just avoiding that. We're going to make sure he's the quarterback.
In my opinion, the biggest thing Shedur is doing to hurt himself is his antics after games. Like, for example, they took a fourth quarter comeback to beat Arizona State. Arizona State has 1 win on the year. Congrats to Colorado. They went over 3.5 wins. They got their 4th on Saturday. I didn't think it was going to happen at the beginning of this or before the season started. But he goes over to the Arizona student section and is like taunting them. I'm like, they have 1 win on the year. They also have a first-year coach. They're trying to build something, and they obviously don't have the cachet that Colorado does. But it's like, man, if you did that, and let's say against Oregon, you ended up beating Oregon where you all were ultimately demolished. Like, it wasn't even a game. I get that. But it takes a fourth quarter struggle where you barely come off and get the win against one of the worst teams in Power 5. That's where it's just like, all right, just act like you've been here before. Even though they haven't, your dad's been in these situations. Surely you can take a moment and just be like, all right, I'm going to be the bigger person here. I'm not going to make this about me. That's where I took, I don't want to say offense, but it's like, come on, man, you're better than this.
Well, you're just not, we are not conditioned to these antics, right? In the NFL, you can't hand a touchdown ball that Tyreek did to his mom in the stands without getting fined $10,000 for it. In this case, this is going to be acting like they've been there before. This is Colorado. This is Deion, and this is Shedur Sanders. This is selling. This is fight promotion.
Yeah,
and that's I've said that from week one. They're selling a fight. They want you to tune in, and then post-game presser is more about next week, selling the next one, and calling out your opponent than it is what just happened in the ring, or in this case, on the gridiron. Speaking of gridiron, college football rapid fire, you've got some teams, some programs, and we'll go through just the perception of where they are coming off the college football weekend on Saturday.
I do, and to start things off, we're going to go with what I believe was the biggest game of the weekend. Number 1 team on our list, number 5, Oklahoma.
Sooners defensive front, havoc at the line of scrimmage. They dominated, David, the way you want, or I expect Alabama or Clemson to dominate in recent years. Dylan Gabriel, 285 yards passing, 300 yards roughly. He ran for over 100. He looked like a magician out there. There were 7 lead changes, 3 ties. It was a classic rivalry matchup, and Oklahoma comes out on top in what's a massive victory for Brent Venables.
It is. I also thought it was kind of a sloppy game, but credit to Oklahoma. I don't know of many instances you can look back on where a team was defeated 49-0 the year before and they come back and get a win whenever they're not exactly intended to be the favorite here. So shout out Oklahoma for avenging last season's loss.
And hey, many times one possession games, the special teams cost you. It did not cost them in this case.
Yeah. But it will lead us into our next team, Hut, but staying in that same game, number 9, Texas Longhorns.
Easily could have 2 losses. Easily could have one on Saturday and still be unbeaten. But to me, they're just like many top teams across college football this season. They're really good, not great. And before we sell on Texas, just keep in mind, I think we're headed to a rematch, and a one-loss Texas team could still be in the college football playoff when it's all said and done.
I kind of question just how good this team is because I don't think Alabama's that good this year, and they were able to get a win in that one. But
by the end of the year, it may look much better than the week after the Texas loss for Bama, for Texas. And Quinn Ewers, I mean, which Quinn Ewers shows up week to week? That's the other factor that needs to be more consistent as they continue down the Big 12 schedule here in the final year.
Yeah, we got some more teams down on this list. We can get into that conversation about just how will this look from a perspective standpoint from now versus 3 weeks down the line. But next up, Hut, number 1 team in the land, the Georgia Bulldogs.
Number 1 player for me right now is Brock Bowers. Number 1 team, number 1 player. 3 games recently, 25 catches roughly, over 400 yards receiving. He has 4 touchdowns. He's a bad man. And he's going to be a fascinating conversation this upcoming draft season. But Georgia finally showed us who they are. Chad was right last week. And Carson Beck put on a show. 4 touchdown passes. Bowers had, 7 catches and 130-something yards. And they cruised. Domination. And this is the feeling that we expected Georgia to give us when the season kicked off. We haven't seen that yet. They gave it to us Saturday.
On the other side, Hut, the Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah, just, again, good, not great. And in what many perceive to be a down year in the SEC, good teams improve. That's where Georgia is. Kentucky, well, it was a lot like 2 years ago when Kentucky went in unbeaten. They left with a loss then. This one seemed even worse.
Yeah, it looks like a paper tiger, everything in perspective now. But the one thing they really don't have that's like really important, one's like, it's a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. Devin Leary.
And when they have to run, they have to run, I mean, Georgia's not the defense you want to run against.
Nope. It's even more baffling now looking at how they were able to beat Florida the way they did after seeing this performance against Georgia. But staying in the SEC, the 11th ranked Alabama Crimson Tide.
How often do you see Alabama, who does everything practically they can to lose? 14 turnovers in this game. They have 26 yards rushing as a team, and they win this game. The last 3 weeks, the defense has really stepped up and stepped forward, I should say. And look, they're winning games when they honestly have been playing this way going back the last couple of seasons, Davey. This time, though, A&M played the right game plan. They made Milroe beat them, and he did. He's growing into the role, too. And since he was benched in week 3, he's completed 75% roughly of his passes, and he's averaging over 10 yards per pass, 6 touchdowns, not that many turnovers. And Jermaine Burton, by the way, hell of a game. And this is where they can step forward, too, is with those two having a great rapport because they need help at wide receiver.
Yeah, definitely a great second half for Jalen Milroe and Burton. I mean, if you're looking at the other side, though, what did you learn about A&M?
Same old. You know, here they are. A&M is not. They're just not the top winning program that they should be. They're 1-8 in their last 9 on the road. They're on the road this week, and they're coming off a loss. Here are, top 15 programs that are, a toss-up, and A&M's defense seemed to be stepping up. They did, and they still lose. Everything was right there for them. And Max Johnson, who's in for, they've got the Haynes King, excuse me. Well, Haynes King is making, winning plays at Georgia Tech, and meanwhile, You've got A-Chain, who's flashing in the NFL. Max Johnson, in this case, didn't come up with the biggest plays needed. It was Milroe.
Max,
it's a tough weekend for them.
Max was at LSU before making the move to A&M. What did you learn from the Tigers as they barely escaped with a win over Missouri?
Secondary's awful. Defense, you mentioned barely escaped that. They're going to lose again. LSU has allowed 94 points in their last 2 games. And as fun as that offense is, and that offense can go toe-to-toe with anyone, it's just a defensive effort that's not going to allow them to win enough to get back to Atlanta. And it's accounted for 98 points of what is, a fun team to watch, but not a team you want to be on the side of if you're trying to find out who's going to win the SEC. It's not LSU, because on defense, they are awful, just like USC on the West Coast.
Going down the line here, Hut. Big upset for a lot of people this week. The 21st ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish not able to put up much of a game there against Louisville. What did we learn?
Yeah, I mean, they fell 11 spots in the poll. I think that was kind. Notre Dame, unfortunately, is just not relevant. I had them in the college football playoff at this point. The way they lost to Ohio State is embarrassing. And, every year we dedicate time to Notre Dame and the Fighting Irish for good reason. Got a great fan base. They're craving a reason to want to get behind a championship level program. Marcus Freeman, the 4th and 11, way early in the game, or way early in the fourth quarter, after the decision that was made late to not try to just take a penalty on the first play where you didn't know you had 10 men on the field. Second time, okay, you didn't want to untime down. It's not a lot of confidence that's growing in me about the direction of the program currently. Props, though, to Louisville. They got it done. How many points did I win in that, by the way?
6.
6.
Sound right.
Continuing to climb the ladder there. NFL Overreaction is next.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be this stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro. There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Hell yeah, baby. I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well.
Yeah.
And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hutton with you. Withrow is on fall break. A well-deserved day off for Chad Withrow with the kids, with the Withrow retreat, and much more. He'll be back in studio with us here at Sixth and Peabody on Wednesday. A couple of injury notes, college football and pro. Colorado five-star Travis Hunter practicing again. That's great news following the lacerated liver injury a few weeks ago. Let's see. At the injury updates for Daniel Jones, Sam Howell, they've already been sacked more times than just the first quarter of the season than Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, Tom Brady, and Jared Goff combined. And that's bad news for Daniel Jones, who left yesterday's game in that beat down that Miami gave them for the Giants with a neck injury. And it's not believed to be serious, but he's getting knocked around. If he's out for any significant time, Tyrod Taylor is the guy to go at quarterback. Justin Jefferson is the big discussion now. He injures his hamstring, star wide receiver. If he's going to miss some time, looking at a 1-4 team in Minnesota that lost yesterday to Kansas City in overtime, and got the trade deadline coming up. Not for him, but for others. And that's a significant issue if Minnesota thinks they can still climb their way out over the next 3 weeks. Not good. Davey, you said right before we came back there's another injury update, or maybe lack thereof, meaning injury.
Yeah. Injury. It's still technically an update for, I guess we could call it an injury, seeing as the way the quarterback wants to play it. But Deshaun Watson, Browns had a bye week. He is still not on the practice field, even being medically cleared over a week ago.
So today, they're playing this coming Sunday against San Francisco.
Correct. It's a home game for them.
Yeah. I'm not hitting the panic button on this just yet, being that it's a Monday. I was looking at the Thursday night schedule just to see, but yeah. Are you thinking like that he's pissed off at something, doesn't want to play?
I don't think he's pissed off at anything. I think he's just being extremely cautious, and he knows. I had this guy give me a fully guaranteed contract for $230 million, so it doesn't really matter if I play or not.
Yes, but the other way to look at this, and I think this is how it is played out in Cleveland. It got out that he had the clearance of the medical staff. He should have played if he's got the clearance of the medical staff personally. You can go down this list with Richardson playing week after week banged up. Joe Burrow, who's throwing dimes to Jamar Chase, and he can barely move, but it continues to improve. We mentioned Justin Jefferson, who will try to give it a go, but again, soft tissue. And if you're cleared by the medical staff, look at it from the team's perspective. He's got the He has the clearance of the medical staff for the team that gave him the fully guaranteed $250 million contract. You don't want to just risk that for that type of guy. You would have load management in the NBA. This, to me, with how they're handling it today, again, coming off a bye, they've suffered some losses. They've got the Monday walkthrough, the stretch. They have the conditioning to get whatever going for the week. Davey, I think this is optics from the Browns as much as it is Watson, who tried to flip the narrative a bit by saying that the shoulder injury was legit after that game, following that trip. I think this is also going, by the way, early in the week. Watch on Wednesday, though. They have their day off tomorrow. Every player does, unless they swap it due to a short week. Let's see if he's on the practice field Wednesday.
I'll wait and I'll see. I would say it is interesting, though, that the team they will be going up against is probably the nastiest in terms of what you could expect as far as taking hits from the quarterback and the 49ers, because they are just all over the field constantly. Yeah. So I think it will be a rough game for whoever the Browns decide to throw out at quarterback.
I'm looking at the see if there's an update now on Kelsey, because he limped to the locker room. He returned with the non-contact ankle injury yesterday, and then went on to catch a touchdown. I mean, he's going to play through this. But there's two storylines here. Number one, what happens to Kansas City without him? Because this is a awful group of wide receivers compared to what we're used to in KC. And if he's got a right ankle or a lower leg that tends to linger a bit even after the game, who knows? But the fact he came back in is a great sign for them, because he's their offense.
Yeah.
He's their offense in the passing game. Number two is the turf. That new stadium, which is 6 or 7 years old now, that stadium has the type of turf that the players are pointing to when it comes to the non-contact injury. They are changing it after this season. They've already announced that previous. So keep an eye on how many injuries happen in Minnesota, because the players are going to continue to point to that as for why they think they have a lot of non-contact or soft tissue injuries that happen, not just on that field, but MetLife and other places. Keep an eye on comments made by Aaron Rodgers maybe tomorrow on McAfee. Doesn't he go on every Tuesday? You're going to double down on the Mr. Pfizer with Kelsey? He didn't seem to mind. Is that the case?
I would imagine so. It's the big storyline you've already missed, though, Hud, is that Taylor Swift was not in attendance for the game in Minneapolis.
Well,
don't know how you skipped over that one.
Well, I mean.
But yeah, apparently, no. Travis is embracing the.
I'm not watching the game to see the Swifties, David.
I was watching Red Zone, and they said they had like a huge announcement coming out of Kansas City, and I thought there was an injury at the time, but they just teased it as if it was, Taylor Swift's not actually here. We've checked, and that was actually pretty frustrating.
It was a very strange weekend because we didn't have many. Deion Sanders wasn't really a big factor in the news, and neither was Taylor Swift this weekend, other than her and Kelsey being on practically every commercial like they were prior. But it's just it's intriguing to see how much I notice it now compared to prior to all this happening. She'll be in Germany. Chiefs and Dolphins play in Germany. They want to expand the global stage of the NFL. We'll see if that. Well, I don't know. The schedule may not pair up for them whenever she's on tour. Maybe she can make her own schedule though.
We'll have to have our crack team of researchers cross-reference the dates on that one.
Maybe so. Let's dive into the NFL. Some truths, some buy or sell, some discussion about overreaction. Where do you want to start?
We've already been hitting on it, but I want to start on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
Right now, they're 4-1. They're atop the AFC as far as the rest of the competition in that conference. But when it's all said and done, Kansas City will be the number one team in the AFC. Overreaction, or that's pretty realistic?
I don't think they're going to be number one. And it's just a consistency factor. They're finding ways to win. They've got, the elite quarterback. They have the elite tight end. They find ways. But you can, and the one loss they have is to Detroit, who we'll get Pollard's take on this in 10 minutes. I think they're a legit contender based on what we've seen over the course of the start of the season. They absolutely believe in what they're doing, and we've seen them win on the road, both in Lambeau and they went on the road to begin the season there. I think when looking at this offense, Davey, it's an overpaid wide receiving core that has not produced to the level that is expected based on what they've had. They've now lost their top receiver in back-to-back years, Juju Smith-Schuster, 2 years ago, Tyreek Hill, and they just haven't developed that same chemistry that used to always be there, right? And they have it with Kelsey, but when he's not there, they're done. And he missed week 1, and now you've got a spot where you see this non-contact, and you think tweets are going out like there's Kansas City's. We're going to look at them like a wild card team now. And I mean, if I'm thinking number 1 seed, I'm not thinking right now KC. I'm looking past them, and maybe I shouldn't. I'm looking past them, and I'm looking more at like Miami, Buffalo, and maybe one of the teams out of the AFC North.
Their defense, in my opinion, not been talked about enough. They've been able to hold all 5 of their opponents this year to 20 points or less. And with Patrick Mahomes, I mean, it's like, hey, Patrick, you go out there, you get me 3 touchdowns, we'll win you the game. I feel like I'm going to take the Chiefs in that situation.
But number 1 seed, though, is what you said, right? Top seed in the AFC. That's what I think is an overreaction.
No, I'm with you. And we'll go to the other team that's currently tied with them in the AFC, but the Dolphins. Are the Dolphins going to win the AFC East?
Yes, I think they will, even though we're coming off of a game where we saw the Bills beat them. I just don't this is more about the consistency of Josh Allen to me. Is this Josh Allen – it doesn't have to be as great as he was against Miami, where he had more touchdown passes than incompletions. I just don't know whenever we get to the crunch time, December, going into playoff even, can Josh Allen make that 4 straight game run where he's not forcing the football and having a game like we saw against the Jets? I don't think so. I'm looking at it from Miami's perspective and thinking if Tua's healthy, this is a Miami offense that absolutely can, and they've only added talent and speed to them.
Quick tangent. Will the NFL stop having a team play 2 weeks in a row overseas? And I say that because you heard the comments from Trevor Lawrence and several members of the Jags being like, hey, we didn't have any of the jet lag. We felt at home. And then, of course, they're sending Buffalo over there, and you could tell it looked as though that was a problem for them.
I mean, I've made this trip with a team. That's on the team. If Buffalo wants to leave early, they can. They left and arrived on a Friday morning. The Titans play over in London this week. They're leaving on Thursday night. They'll arrive in London Friday morning, just like they did a few years back. Baltimore left from their game and went straight to London from a loss. So if you're looking at it, it was an advantage for Jacksonville, absolutely. But if you want to get over there and get acclimated to the time change, you have other days to do that before you want to schedule things. Here's one of the issues, though, and the Titans ran into this a bit. When the scouting, they've sent 3 or 4 trips over to scout. Teams can stay wherever they want. They stayed in this castle, and it's not like you're paired with the teams or anything. It's just a normal road trip for you. The NFL helps you with the setup and the traffic and things. But this lawn, this massive 3-acre lawn behind the castle, is where they were scheduling to practice. And like right before they got there, the horses had been on the lawn. So you can imagine you don't want A.J. Brown doing anything in practice to turn an ankle. So and that was just on one day in a walkthrough. But a lot of teams figured out, hey, we'd rather get over there and come straight back, practice in our own facility, and try to make it as normal as possible. They'll give you sleep melatonin. Players have sleeping pods on the flights over. I was in the back trying to stay awake and joke and watch movies and stuff with the road crew. That's where it's at. And I had the jet lag for like 2 days. When I was not expecting that. The players, though, they're not traveling in coach for these trips. The double-decker planes are where it's at, and chartered.
I struggle going from here to the West Coast. I couldn't imagine doing it the other way. But, we're going to see more games go overseas, and we got one this week, have one the following week, and I think there's even a couple more weeks after that. But getting back to the AFC East, Zach Wilson can get the Jets a wild card berth?
No. Major overreaction based on them playing, wait for it, the Denver Broncos defense. We just saw them give up the massive lead at home to Washington. They then give up 70. They lose by 50 to Miami. And all of a sudden, Zach Wilson is getting the praise as a playoff contender. No, the Jets are going to be in games. The Jets are going to be in games. They were in games last year. But this is not the consistent quarterback to get you there. Things are wide open right now for a handful of teams in the AFC South, which I'm surprised by, and the Chargers have life. Keep them in mind when you're discussing. Many wrote them off. We asked this last week, I believe, are the Chargers done? No, and it's because Rodgers is injured and Burrow's been banged up. Bengals have life too. There are a lot of wild card teams in the AFC that are going to get healthier as we progress. And unfortunately for the Jets, Rodgers, maybe he does return this season. He probably won't, because that would be in January when the playoffs will be rolling around. I don't think the Jets are going to be there, even as great as the defense is.
Just hand it off to Brees.
He was great. And play the Broncos defense every week. That'll also help you. Bernard Pollard joins us next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. Blowing a lead and losing a game is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of the Southern Legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here on this Monday edition. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Hutton here. No Withrow. Well-deserved day off. He'll be back with us on Wednesday. Jam-packed show today. A fabulous football weekend. Plenty of storylines on and off the field. NFL continues to entertain a lot of 2 and 3 teams. Several surprises. Several teams that are underachieving but seem to be getting better. We'll focus on the Bengals later. We'll also, later this hour, preview Monday Night Football. Tonight, you've got the Packers taking on the Raiders. Jets beat the Broncos, and Nathaniel Hackett got more than a game ball. He got his revenge. Sean Payton, what he said about Hackett, by the way, I thought was on the mark. Hackett wins the Hackett Bowl. And it's not like Parcells being carried off after winning the Super Bowl, but it kind of looked like that. He got pep talks going on. The coach made it personal. It felt like a Colorado Buffaloes game with Dion coaching. Gets the game ball afterwards from Robert Saleh. You know, talk about making it personal. Leading off the hour here with Bernard Pollard. He made it personal on defense throughout his NFL career. Former NFL safety. And does great work as an NFL and football analyst and much more. Solid of him to come on the show today. BP, good to see you, man. Hope things are well.
What's up, baby?
What do you think about the Jets Broncos and the way this all played out? And catch this. So you've got Hackett who said, "Hey, this was preseason training camp. Right. I'm surprised by what he said. I mean." I expected to get this in week 5, and going back there, I've certainly thought about it. He's got all the support there within the Jets organization, especially Aaron Rodgers. And again, that's kind of what you expect. For it to play out that way, where the nightmare of that for him, which was the experience in Denver from his perspective too, not just Broncos fans in the organization, to now not with Rodgers, but with Zach Wilson go on the road and beat a bad football team coached by Sean Payton who talked that trash. What do you think?
Look, I look at this, man. I don't think the Broncos are bad. Like, I'm gonna say this.
Okay.
I really don't. I don't think they're bad. I think it's a lot that Coach Payton had to come in and adjust. He had to reset. You got to remember, man, this Broncos team was trash last year. They were terrible last year. So when we watch everything that Coach Payton had to come in and do to establish and to implement his system, to implement his rules, things like that. When we talk about the takeover and putting everything he had to do with this football team, that was a lie. Now, this is I think probably one of the most talented offenses on paper in the National Football League. Now, saying what he said about Hackett, Coach Hackett or whatever, all of that was warranted. Hackett's team, Hackett was terrible.
I agree.
He was awful. And you said that. So I look at this and yesterday's loss. I mean, they just have to put things together. A year of bullcrap with the horrible coach. I've been in that. Honestly, I've been in it in Kansas City and I've been in it in Houston, and Tennessee.
Go ahead.
When you're when you're dealing with all of that and the change from the top down, it's just like, man, you've got to reset guys' thinking. You've got to reset. Dudes be on vacation in week 12, vacation in week 5, vacation in week 10. And so you've got to be able to get them guys on, and you just can't cut some of them guys because, you know, that's money. You can't cut that money like that. And as we see with the New York Jets, everybody wondering why they're sticking with Wilson. They got a lot of money in that quarterback room. They got to stick with Wilson. They can't go out there and pay anybody else like that. So, the words that Coach Payton said about Hackett was warranted. Yesterday they got the victory. Was it huge? I don't know. I mean, freaking Denver's still trying to come together. Heck, the Jets still trying to come together and figure what they're, who they are. So it's crazy to me. It's weird at the same time, but it's crazy.
Bernard Pollard, our guest on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. What are we certain of right now across the NFL? The Niners are dominant. The Eagles are 5-0. Are they the best teams? No question. What are you certain of, Bernard?
I'm certain that the officiating is inconsistent.
Yes.
I'm certain.
Yes.
I'm certain that I just don't like the fact. As I watch football, and you've been watching football for a long time, I don't like the fact that they've stripped the defense of their power. They've stripped defense. I get the calls, and you don't want people out headhunting it to make hits to try to hurt anybody blindside and doing the helmet to helmet, things of that nature. But I just feel as if they've taken all of the power from the defensive players and they've given it to the offensive players. And I don't think that it's fair because these little ticky-tack, my head is connected to my shoulders. So when I go to hit you with my shoulder, my helmet might graze you. I think we all can see what's malicious or not.
Yeah.
And I think the inconsistencies with the tackling, I think the inconsistency with calling and officiating the game, I understand it's hard. I get it. When you're out on the football field, when you're watching that game full speed and you're watching the best of the best of the best athletes in the world. So, I get it. I get that it's hard, but hey, that's your job. You got to do a better job.
Well, and I think we're seeing also the veteran white hat officials, the referees, they have retired or they went and did something else in mass exodus recently. They're doing media or they're, a lawyer now or whatever. I think we're seeing that too.
They all are lawyers.
Yeah,
they all are lawyers. They
are.
get paid good money. So I don't know, man. It's bad.
But I think we're seeing the replacements having to fill the adjustments. Also, in a league that is set up for the offense to win,
right?
There's a lot of bad offense in the league this year. Just watching drop passes and sloppy play and bad court. There's a lot of bad offense, BP. I see defenses getting after it more so than I see strong offensive effort. Not every week. Of course, we can point to Miami and what they did to the Denver Broncos posting 70. Right. I'm not even pointing at that, but there's a lot of scoring below 20 points right now.
Yo, for me, as I watch football and to go back, to rewind a little bit, I don't think the 49ers, yes, they're good football teams. The 49ers, with what Philly is doing, I think Miami is I think they're the real deal. And when we look at what's going on with the Miami Dolphins, I got to say this. 28 reminds me a lot of 28 that was with Tennessee Titans with Chris Johnson. That 28, he reminds me of Chris Johnson. And so, when we watch, this game is they want these quarterbacks to play catch with the receivers. They want come across the middle. I don't want anybody to be hit. This is today's NFL, and it sucks for us as former players as we watch the game. But when you see the drop passes and things of that nature, that's just the game. That's concentration. That's lack of leadership. That's consistency problems and things of that nature. But I hate to see it. I watched it a lot yesterday in yesterday's game, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna see it in tonight's game.
Oh yeah. Hey, you mentioned A-Chain. What a debut, because they slow played him in coming off the injury in the preseason. And now he's averaging, 12 yards per carry or something, and the speed element. Yeah. All Miami has done is find speed. You mentioned C.J. Tute, Chris Johnson. Right. He was drafted in the first round. A-Chain ran the fastest time, and he's a third-round pick. I don't know how that happens.
These, especially at the running back position, as you know, these guys fall. Some guys may, come up in the draft, but they got their money's worth. He's going to make a lot of money in his player's performance bonus. But I think he was a steal. I think he's a player who, they can use him in so many different ways, running out the backfield, throwing to him out the backfield, and motioning him to throw the ball as a slot. He is phenomenal. And it doesn't even look like he's running fast, but he is literally blazing past people. This Miami team I think is super special. And we all say if they can stay healthy. But I honestly, this team is phenomenal defensively, offensively, and on special teams.
Bernard Pollard, our guest on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. We're tabling the discussion on New England. That's coming up in about 10 minutes or so. We have alphas and betas of the weekend. The Lions, no betas for the Detroit Lions. Do we believe the Lions as a contender? And let me pick up here. I do, because they've handed Kansas City their lone loss.
Right.
They did that at Arrowhead. Where, I mean, if you want to prove something, go to Arrowhead and win. You would know that playing in Kansas City. You know what it's like as far as the atmosphere. It's the most college-like atmosphere, period.
Right.
And they have the guys, Kelsey and Mahomes on offense. They also went to Lambeau and won. And now, and I'm not changing the opinion just based on a blowout win over Carolina. That's not flipping the script for me here. But I do see the consistency necessary to offensively. They've got playmakers. They have a quarterback that has been to a Super Bowl before. And Hutchinson and company on defense continue to improve and get after it. They have a Coach of the Year candidate. I like where Detroit sits, and I like where they are in the division.
I agree 100% with you. I think at the beginning of the year, even heading to training camp, what Coach Campbell, I wasn't a believer in all of he's an emotional guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like some guys like that, some guys don't like it. I'm a guy where I'm like, okay, I don't mind the emotions and things of that nature, but, I just want to see wins. What he's been doing the last few years in Detroit is just crafting that team, getting that puzzle right. And from the quarterback perspective, he got it right. From a mentality, a toughness, and things of that nature, he got it right. Getting pieces in a draft, he got it right. Trades, he got it right. Him and his staff, they're doing the right things. I thought last year was, I was not a believer in Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. I thought he was a lot of the problem because I said the Detroit Lions, the New York Jets, and the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're the three most athletic teams in the National Football League last year and this year. They're still the most athletic teams in the National Football League. When you look at the athleticism, but you look at the positions that they're being put in, I thought Glenn put the defense for the Detroit Lions in a lot of bad positions last year that cost them games. The offense can score 40, but if they're giving up 42, they're going to lose games, and that's what happened. So I think this year they have done a better job, especially at the beginning of the year, as you talked about. They went into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead. So when we look at that and the way that they played defensively, they played man, they played fire zone, they played some regular zones, they played some zero in spurts in the red zone, not on a 20-yard line with 80 yards of field behind them to put those young guys in position to be beaten. Hutchinson is a kid that I am blown away by. I was not a believer in him at Michigan. I thought he was overhyped. When I see this kid play now, I'm sitting back like, yo, this dude has a motor. He is relentless, and he's getting after the quarterback. And, I mean, if you look at the attitude of every guy in the front seven for that defense, they all play the same. They've got some pieces in the back end. They're doing a phenomenal job. Offensively, I love what the Detroit Lions are doing, and I think they're contenders, and I think they're real.
Yeah, man, and you mentioned who they've added, like the culture that they're building that. You know, you don't just inherit something and just say, we've got this. But they have signed guys, even in the secondary from Pittsburgh, just that fit. They fit that mentality of the defense that you're discussing. They're now 12-3 in their last 15 regular season games. That speaks to their consistency. Inconsistent is Minnesota. Justin Jefferson, hamstring injury.
Right.
Vikings are now 1-4. They lose another close game, overtime yesterday to Kansas City. Lose by 7. You've got the Bears. That are staring down top picks. Maybe the Patriots. We're going to discuss this. Hey, in terms of their upcoming schedule, Bears, Niners, and Packers are their upcoming schedule. Trade deadline's October 31st. In a minute here, Bernard, what do you think happens to this Minnesota team, especially given the fact that Jefferson could be sidelined based on the significance of the hamstring injury?
I mean, hamstrings are hard to come back from. I think they're really difficult, so they're going to have to take their time. I don't know where he injured the hamstring, if it's the top, medium, in the middle, or the bottom. So that's going to all depend, and they're not going to, of course, let us know that. I think this middle. So, and you may or may not agree with me. Some people may stone me for this, but I think they're okay. I would not. I mean, if you want to go out and potentially trade for a receiver, go ahead. But I think, when you look at this Minnesota Vikings team, like you said, inconsistent. I don't think they're in a position like the Chicago Bears. The Bears are terrible. They might play good every now and again, but I don't like their quarterback situation. I don't like the receiver situation is good, but they just got to get them involved more and do certain things, play calling wise. But I think the Minnesota Vikings are in an okay position right now. I don't think they need to go out and really add pieces. They just need to get on the same page. Coaching, players, they need to get on the same page. I'm seeing players don't trust players here. I'm seeing, the offensive line is breaking down in spurts and not blocking for Cousins. Cousins has 4 interceptions this year. And, some of them are they're not really like bad interceptions that we see a lot of quarterbacks throw. So I want to say the Minnesota Vikings are in good hands. Just tighten up and get consistent.
Yeah, man. Bad news with just the early exit. I'm looking up, as you're saying all this, Jefferson and the injury update. He's getting multiple opinions on the hammy. Mm-hmm. That's normally not a good thing, right? Like that's normally initially bad, and it's like, hang on, I want to play. They're trying to protect him from himself. Again, I'm just reading between the lines there. 3 catches, 28 yards though before the injury yesterday. That's not how you go about winning and getting on a roll if he's going to miss some games. BP, stick with us. Coming up, alphas and betas of the week. We're going to start with the betas. There's plenty to discuss there. We're starting with New England and the Patriots. And what was the Patriots' way? Man, I know Brady meant a lot. But the Patriots' way right now, I mean, which way are they going? Belichick wants to discuss starting over. I'm serious, man, who are they starting over with? Is Belichick going to be there? Is he not? Like, there's a lot to dive into. Bernard Pollard with us, former NFL safety. He always brought it on the field. And right here, Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Stick around. We got plenty of discussion headed your way. And, again, we lead off and tee off on New England and what we're seeing from Mac Jones, the offense, bad defense with some injuries, and, man, we haven't seen this from Belichick either. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network rolls on.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump now at least have to see like senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be this stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, like who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm gonna go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Hell yeah, baby! I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well.
Yeah.
And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Thanks to the OutKick staff here in Music City, Nashville, Tennessee. 6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Flat out getting it done. We've got Bernard Pollard with us. He gets it done. Plenty of opinion, analysis, big takes. He swings the heavy stick. And BP, I said over the weekend, I said, hey, we do alphas and betas of the weekend. You're more than welcome to join in on this. You're like, bet, absolutely. We're here. And I saved – we normally start with the alphas. I'm starting with the betas right now because I held off on the Patriots. I led the show with this. I wasn't expecting the end of an era, quote, unquote, this year in New England. Wasn't buying into the talk. We certainly had some of the best reporters on that beat with Mike Reese and Tom Curran, who came on the show and said, like, yeah, it is being discussed. Like, is he on the hot seat? Is he not? Bill Belichick, I'm saying. I'm buying it now because this is going nowhere fast. And if it's going anywhere, it's to the incinerator. It could get really, really bad. And the Patriots starting over, quote unquote, beta of the week. What they've done over the last two games, losing to Dallas and then losing 34-0 to New Orleans. Bernard, starting over with what and with who at this point?
I mean, with who's going to have to be a new coach. I mean, you know, I think, and that's the crazy thing because we've seen this team be so dominant, you know, winning the East every single year, of course, with Tom Brady. Those are hard shoes to fill for any quarterback that steps in. And I shouldn't say they're hard shoes to fill with any quarterback that step in, as long as Brady was there, because we know and understand he's been out before, but his presence and you know what he's able to help and a lot of other veteran leaders that were around that organization, you know, helped and you know the guys played together. But I'm seeing I'm seeing an organization, I'm seeing a football team that's terrible. I don't know if this is the way Belichick wants to go out or wanted to go out, but I think this is going to be the way he goes out, simply because, as you said, 34-0 to the Saints. I'm seeing consistently they're fighting from behind, even on their victory, the one victory, the lone victory that they have. They're coming from behind, and you know this team is not playing with any kind of juice. So you're starting to wonder, okay, are these younger guys starting to buck the system a little bit? Because I remember when I was playing and shortly after I was done playing, you know, guys would talk about going to New England like you didn't want to go because he trained you like a soccer team. You did certain things. And so I don't know if you talked about the New England way. I don't know the Patriot way. I don't know if that is a thing anymore because we're watching it. We all thought Coach Bill O'Brien was going to be the savior as far as for this offense. They're looking trash. I mean, 110 yards passing for Mac Jones, and
benched
he
again.
has 5 benched again for Zappe, but 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and it's not all on him. But I'm like, this is terrible. So they've got to start with a new coach. They've got to get just something fresh in there to start this thing over for New England. And they've been good for a long time. Hats off to them, but it's time to start over.
Get this, man. The Patriots have scored as many points this season as opponents have scored off of New England turnovers. That's how bad it is. And, I mean, just and look, you mentioned the Patriot way and just how players don't want to go there. You're locked in there. Players have left. Friends in the league that left, and they're doing podcasts. They have their own radio shows or speaking. They don't do that there. It's bad when, like, Devin McCourty is asked on Football Night in America last night, what does Belichick mean by starting over? And he just throws his hands in the air like, who knows? But Belichick had his team practice in a downpour the week they were going to Dallas. That is, to your point, that's what you're saying, right? It's kind of like, man, what do you want this team to get behind and kind of figure out the way? That's not really the way to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is. I don't think the type of players that he had, with the Devins and just a lot of those Toms and Nikovic and all those dudes, they're not there anymore.
The Alphas made us,
they're not there anymore. And I mean, the NFL, and you look at on most of the rosters, these rosters, they want younger players. They want kids. And so when you get kids, you're going to have inconsistent football play. You're going to have, as we know, rookies get you beat. When you're certain type of coaches and certain vibes and certain way, personalities, the way you coach, they work, but then you find out sometimes they don't work. And so I think this is what we're seeing, because we're seeing a dominant organization for 20 plus years. Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at this team like, man, it's embarrassing to watch the New England Patriots play football now.
Yeah.
And so, it's time for them to start over.
And that's looking forward. They've got the Raiders on the road. Then they'll host the Bills, and then they head to Miami to take on the Dolphins again. And just one final point here, and we'll move to Beta 2 of the weekend. Hey, Robert Kraft has been silent. The last time I remember hearing from him, he mentioned, hey, we haven't been to the playoffs and won since Brady was here. That was just a handful of months ago. And now this is playing out. I'm with you, man. I wasn't buying it at first. I think we're witnessing that. This is not a team that turns it around, even though it's Belichick at the helm. And I mean, a great coach. This is just not – and I don't think he's done. Do you think he's done?
I think they're going to try to figure out a way to get him out the door.
No, I mean in coaching, like in the NFL.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he can go anywhere else, and anybody will accept. The coaches are getting younger. As you see, fresh guys coming in from college, they don't want him hovering over their back. That you don't want that shadow. And so, I just don't think anybody would agree to have him come on. I think potentially he can serve a role as I don't even know if he will want to,
do the GM thing, because that's what he's doing,
Right,
Again, you're right.
Yeah. So it's really going to depend. Because you just don't know. I know a younger coach ain't going to want him over their shoulder, though.
Mario Cristobal and Miami's lost to Georgia Tech. This is not the first time that he didn't take a knee and ended up losing. And it happens where you take the knee, Georgia Tech's out of timeouts. Yeah, I mean, the fumble happens. They still can make a tackle and the game's over.
Right.
But take the knee when – and I made the comparison earlier. If the average high school student knows what a victory formation would look like and the symbol for it on the sideline, that should be a fireable offense with cause. If you've got at the level that they're coaching and the money they're getting, to not just take the knee and take it to the house, what's he thinking?
I mean, to be fired, I think they still got about 2 or 3 coaches on payroll. So I don't know if they can fire him. But,
maybe I'm exaggerating a bit there, but I'm thinking, how do you let your team down in that way?
Yeah, that was a big failure on his part. As I watched it, I was just sitting there like, yo, you've got to be kidding me. But I think we all can agree you don't want a situation like that because with the replay and everything else, you're trying to look to see if he was down. You just don't even want it to be in the ref's hands right there.
No.
Keep it in our hands and let's kneel the ball. You know what I mean? Like, let's kneel the ball and not have to give up something crazy. But then for the defense to go back there and to give up the play was just, absolutely crazy. He should be fired. He should be fired. I think for me, when I see a coach do something like that, and I've called him out, I've called out the Harbaughs, I've called out the way they, he's done things in Baltimore. But with a play like this, an easy win, I shouldn't say easy win, but you got to just nail the ball. And we walk away. You know what I mean? I don't like it. It leaves a sour taste in the players' mouths. And he's doing a lot of apologizing since Saturday.
Yeah, no apologies necessary on that. You can't apologize for that mistake. And when it's happened before as well. We discussed earlier Sean Payton losing to Hackett and Zach Wilson after his comments in the offseason. But Wilson's playing better football. Why is the defense so bad there? Why? When I say Wilson, Russell Wilson is what I'm referring to. Why is the Denver defense so awful?
Once again, when you inherit a football team and the mentality was the way it was with Hackett, those are bad habits. Those guys got used to certain things. They got used to walk. Look, let me tell you this, Hut. When I got here to Tennessee, I remember walking in and in between meetings, guys, all they wanted to do was go to the website to look at Jordans. You had guys looking at cars. You had guys playing around. Guys will be asleep in meetings. And I'm sitting there looking around the room like, are you kidding me? We had a coach with scotch. I'm not lying. He would have scotch in a glass and a cigar in his mouth in the meetings. No coaching whatsoever. I'm looking at him and I'm looking like, yo, I ain't gonna say his name.
Yep.
Hey, my man, you gonna tell them about them adjustments? No. You tell them, BP. What are you doing here? So if it was that bad, and it's been bad before, but if it was that bad, I can only imagine what it was like with Hackett. So when you have coaches that are allowing certain things to happen, players are getting away with bullcrap. You remember the Raiders. People went to Oakland to their careers were over with. They just went there to collect a paycheck, and they did not play on the football field. They were checked out in Washington. So this is what was going on with Denver. And so when Coach Payton is coming in and implementing his system and his rules and letting guys know, we have a standard here. He's setting up his standard. Guys, you're either going to get on with it or you're not. We already saw guys are requesting trades, asking for releases, things of that nature. So he's trying to get guys to buy in. And it's going to take a year or two for that to happen because of 1 year of allowing Hackett to be the head coach. That's how much damage a new coach that doesn't know what he's doing, that's how much damage he can do in a year with a football club.
And by the way, Bernard is speaking from the experience of coming from Baltimore to Tennessee.
Exactly.
In that transition. I want to roll through the alphas of the weekend, and I want to get your take on Monday Night Football. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. They avenged their losses last year, both shut out and lost by 49 and 48 respectively. Fantastic job with rebounding against opponents that had their number. The Phillies go to Atlanta, shut down the Braves offense, 3-0. They're about to have first pitch here in about 30 minutes or so. And finally, Bernard, Jamar Chase. He demanded the ball, and he got the ball. Well, look, the Bengals overall should be getting healthier as we progress. The AFC North is really heating up. What do you make of Cincinnati? And how about Jamar Chase saying, hey, I'm always open? He gets like 18 targets yesterday.
When we look at this situation, Hut, it's phenomenal to see Chase getting the ball. I think he's a phenomenal talent. I think, the Cincinnati Bengals, what I like, they're playing some good ball. I think what's happening in that locker room, while we're seeing inconsistencies in that locker room, they're going to have to move Higgins. Higgins is going to have to be a guy that they move at some point. I did not think, when I look at, I'm seeing inconsistent play by the other receivers. Jamar Chase is going to be their guy that they pay. Higgins is going to be a guy, a piece that you move. And I think, you look at potentially a Titans or maybe another team coming to
Carolina's
push
called.
to get him. Carolina pushing to get Higgins. But they're going to have to move him because it's going to start to be problems because he's going to see his stock, and as far as what he's asking for money-wise, he's going to see that falling if he's not getting the ball. And as you already said, all the targets that Jamar Chase just got, he's looking like, okay, wait a minute, how can I get that? How can I be a part of that? They can't spread the ball around. It's going to be a Chase. It's going to be an Irwin and a Boyd show. It's not going to be Higgins, when he comes back into this thing. So, it's phenomenal to be able to see them rebound and get this victory. But I think it's going to be a problem if they don't move him here shortly.
Sounds like Devontae Adams and Jair Alexander are both available. That's the reports playing tonight, Monday Night Football. Packers and Raiders. What do you make of the matchup? We got about a minute and a half here, and just you get a situation where here's Jordan Love on a primetime game against a Raiders team that seems to be reeling a bit.
Jordan Love is playing better ball than I thought he was going to be playing. I did not think he was bad, but I thought he was a good quarterback. I thought he was going to take some time to kind of get going. When I look at this game, once again, I said at the beginning, or when they even hired Josh McDaniels, I don't like him. He's a guy that players don't like, and you're hearing a lot of guys voice it. So I think it's going to be a good game. I just don't know if I can trust the Raiders. I think the Green Bay Packers come and I think they beat them.
Yeah, I'm taking Green Bay as well. I've got some prop bets coming up with points bet I'm about to lay out here. But I like elite talent against former teams. Yeah. And Devontae Adams is playing. I mean, it's a hell of a matchup against Alexander. Both guys banged up. It kind of evens the playing field a bit. You want to talk about demanding the football. Adams is going to demand the football tonight. Hey, love having you on, man. Always on demand here anytime you want. We love having you. Appreciate the time today, and let's do it again soon.
Thank you, Huck, man. Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, man. Bernard Pollard, the best. Tells it like it is. You want honesty? That guy gave it to you in the locker room. No social media. Apparently no, what did he say? Was it scotch he mentioned? Scotch and a cigar? You can go for that right now. And no locker room, though. I won't be coaching the formations either. Coming up, picks for Monday Night Football. And let's dive into the magnitude of this for Green Bay. That's next on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. Blowing a lead and losing a game is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the Foley Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Old Taste of the Southern Region.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Wrapping up what's been a fast-paced show for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here on the OutKick Network. Catch all the shows on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Search out OutKick while you're there. Hit the like button. Join us in the chat and more. Withrow's back with us on Wednesday. Davey Hudson in studio with us, and we'll preview Monday Night Football in just a moment. We'll do that through PointsBet. If you haven't taken your shot with PointsBet, now's the perfect moment. Here's the big reason why. Exclusively for first-time PointsBet users, you can check out this unique offer right now. PointsBet users who sign up now, you get up to $1,000 in second-chance bets. If your first bet doesn't go as planned, well, PointsBet has your back with a second chance. Get this offer. You visit OutKick.com/bet, OutKick.com/bet. You complete the registration process with PointsBet, and you make your first bet. If your first bet happens to lose, that's when second chance bets come into play. Remember, terms and conditions apply. You've got to be 21 or older in legal gambling states. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. OutKick.com/bet is where you head to snag this offer. Davey, I like the over in catches for Devontae Adams tonight, taking that. I always tend to pick a kicker in the games for the over-under on points scored. I think Carlson's at like 5.5. I would take the over there too. And Green Bay, I would take to win the game. Are you confident in this or no?
I actually, outside the kicker one, I don't really know. I mean, it is in a dome, so you at least have that going for you in that regard. Carlson's really good kicker. I am with you on Green Bay money line. I'm hedging my bet a little bit. Personal influence.
Okay.
I need Jordan Love to get me 15.5 fantasy points tonight in order to get out of the winless column. It's been rough. I've been playing fantasy football since 2009, and this is the worst season I've ever had in the history of that. So I need a little bit of a spark there, but no Aaron Jones, so I think Green Bay is definitely going to be looking to sling the ball around. You look at Romeo Doubs, you look at Christian Watson. I've got their over on catches. They're both sitting at 3.5.
It's time for Watson to come alive.
And so I think he had 2 receptions in his first game back from the hamstring injury. Fortunately for him, one of those did go for a touchdown. But I'm anticipating them getting those wide receivers. I'm hoping for a high-scoring game. I really don't want a defensive battle, even though the under has typically been the play for primetime games so far this season.
Garoppolo's back. You've got, of course, Adams is playing. It's going to be a nice matchup with Alexander. Green Bay getting 2.5. Raiders the favorite right now going into tonight's kickoff. Anytime touchdown scores, so Chad would go with one of these. Josh Jacobs, A.J. Dillon, not bad because you mentioned he is out, right?
Aaron Jones is out.
Yeah. So A.J. Dillon, anytime touchdown score. And maybe you go with one of the quarterbacks that's also a Withrow play. He's a fan of the quarterback sneak.
The defensive line and just the ability to stop the run defense for the Raiders is not what the Packers would have saw last time against the Lions. The Lions shut down their run game. So I would imagine they'll try to run it a little bit more, but still, A.J. Dillon, he's in his final stages of being in the NFL. So I definitely anticipate them trying to use the air attack to take advantage.
I don't know where he ranks in this category. I know where Josh Jacobs ranks. There are 23 players with 50 or more rushing attempts this season, and Jacobs averaging right now 2.7 yards per attempt.
Is that last?
He is tied with Ramondre Stevenson for the lowest mark in the NFL. That was going into Week 5.
It's Ramondre might even be lower on that list now after what the Saints did to the Pats.
Packers are coming off extended rest.
Yep.
That's another factor here. McDaniels, 6-0. He started 6-0 in Denver. Since that point, 12-31 as a head coach.
Not been good.
No, not good. Again, outkick.com/bet is where you can go. And if you're rooting on a high-scoring game, low-scoring, whatever, if you're like Davey and you've got fantasy options and you need another reason to watch this game, PointsBet's got you covered there. So a controversial catcher interference call in the Braves-Phillies matchup, and it ends up in the game one of the NLDS with trash on the field with, bases loaded, 2 outs, top of the 8th.
Yep.
And
Braves already down 3-0 at this point.
Yeah, it was not a good night for the Bravos.
I mean, I know.
Or the fans.
Yeah, I feel for Chad. And it's the one thing he'd been worried about all year as far as facing the Phillies in the playoffs. They were just able to shut down the Braves offense. And you look at this historical context of how good the Braves have been, and to just get blanked like they did, it's pretty rough. And I'm sure that going into tonight's game, Braves fans aren't exactly feeling confident. But the Braves, Sean Murphy, the catcher, he did come out and say, as it related to the catcher interference, he did not feel it off his glove, but he did hear it. Yep. And what's crazy for me is the video replay showed no evidence of the bat actually hitting the glove. But they called it catcher interference on the field, so the play obviously stood.
And then you had the lengthy review.
Yes.
Then you had the lengthy delay with the trash.
Yes.
And with that announcement, you kind of felt the vibe there.
And it's one of those things, too. I feel for Braves fans. I mean, people aren't going to like this take, but I kind of like it being a little borderline dangerous at times when you're in a stadium. And it's just like always keep your head on a swivel. I don't know. It just kind of reminds me of like the Gladiator days.
Yeah, well, if you want that, you can go to other stadiums. You don't have to go to Atlanta. Atlanta's better than that. This should have been better than that. If you've got a situation where Murphy is saying that he did say he heard it, right, on the glove.
This was definitely post game in the
didn't feel it. He said though, wouldn't you feel it?
I don't know, man. It was weird because I'm actually watching this happen live, and I was just like, I didn't see anything. Now the reaction immediately after the Romuto was swinging through, he pointed right back and said, like, hey, that was catcher interference. It didn't seem as though Murphy put up much of a fight in the moment. But it just reminded me of, if you go back to the 2012 wild card series for the Braves, I believe they were playing the Cardinals in that one. They had like an infield fly rule that was just a really bad call. And, I mean, it took them 25 minutes at least to clean up the trash from that one. I remember sitting in my dorm room, and I had like a 20-inch TV, and I'm just like trying to like zoom in and watch this as that happened. But, yeah, it was definitely some vibes of 2012 for Braves fans after that one.
Vibes of Clayton Kershaw as well in postseason form, man.
Do you think? I mean, sports psychologists are coming more and more common, and I mean, this guy, if he's not seeing one, I don't know what to do. This guy, like, playoffs come here, this guy just shuts down. There's nothing. It's just
clockwork.
It's like death, taxes, and Clayton Kershaw blowing it in the playoffs. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. I feel bad for the guy. Like, I don't have an MLB team that if I would root for the Braves, I guess, just based off regional ties. But this guy just every single playoffs, it seems like it's just going downhill quickly.
Well, so his you've got a record of 210 and 92 in 425 regular season games. Playoff stats: 39 playoff appearances, 32 starts, 13 and 12 is his record.
I mean, it's
with a
still
4.49 ERA.
Still a winning record, but it's just like when it goes bad, it
Well,
goes bad.
It's not unanimous, no-brainer Hall of Fame winning record. And you're right. I mean, it's the narrative, and it's mental, right? It's got to be.
Oh yeah.
That it's just stuck with him. What's the reaction whenever he gets over the hump there, or does he?
I mean, how old's the guy now? He's got to be getting up there. There can't be that many more opportunities left for him, you'd think.
Not many. Yeah. Well, so he's got the poor performances. 2014, he had over a 7.82 ERA in that. Another beatdown. They play later tonight, don't they?
Yep, they do. They're after the Braves, so I believe they'll not tip off, but they'll first pitch will be around like 9:07. You know, whenever it's on like TBS, TNT, there's always that time that's just off by 6 or 7 minutes from the hour or from the half hour. I actually kind of enjoy that because it's like it just always sticks out in your mind. It's just like, is the game at 9? Nope, 9:07. I was like, all right, then
and it's right on the money. I mean, technically the NFL kickoffs are at like 1:02 Eastern. Give you that 2 minutes for that quick break after the quick tease.
Is it only TNT and TBS that pretty much do that? Because like they do the same thing for the NCAA tournament when that rolls around.
No, I mean I think they do that for all the networks to get in their. That's another a sales opportunity for the keys to the game or whatever.
But I'm saying like from at least announcing it, like the NFL or
that they
college football, it might be it's going to be a little delayed. But as far as just announcing like, hey, we're at 9:07.
Yeah, instead of just noon or noon central or whatever. Maybe so. I don't.
Does that pay dividends? Like
to announce it as 7:07?
Yeah, I'd like to see the numbers on that.
I don't know. I think it's just
Matt, get to looking into
that.
They
did it to begin with, and the old timers who were once young and complained about the old timers, now they keep the rules the same, at least somewhat. No one tends to look at Major League Baseball owning the company that makes the baseballs. You know, but changing the rules and whatever.
I lost a ton of money that year. I was probably a little bit
because they mixed them up.
Yeah,
they had the old baseballs and then the new ones that they had put back into rotation.
There was a 2-year period where I probably was spending way too much money in my gambling efforts for NBA, NHL, and MLB. I was trying to just find different models that would work, and the MLB one was the only one where it wasn't syncing up. And then, of course, the story comes out a year later about how they were mixing those baseballs. And I was just like, no wonder I couldn't get a good read. It's the pitchers would even talk about just the feel would be a little bit different, how it was coming off the bats. Like some games, you just had no idea. I don't know how Major League Baseball can be able to get away with that. And it's just they want to talk about integrity. It's like we don't It's infuriating.
Apparently, I mean, it's all optics, right? So the integrity of the sport, quote unquote. Amazing how apparently baseball players don't bet on apps. All we hear about is the NFL, right? And in the NFL, isn't it crazy how there's not apparently star quarterbacks don't gamble on apps? You know, they knew the rules. For all the confusion, there's only 12 players, 12 to 15 players who of significant time that missed. And they're role players at best, and in some cases, guys who either weren't going to make the roster or going into the final year of their contract.
I'm not going to give a shout out to any gambling company in specific on this, but if the players wanted to get rid of that, they could just go to all these other books that are offshore. It's just don't use the actual ones that check your geolocation, which we know the main books that do that.
Well, but it's legal in their state to download and use. In this case, I'm referring to, I don't want you betting on the game. I'm saying there's betting on any other sport, which you're allowed to do. You're still suspended for it. And I always say this. Imagine if the top player in baseball, name him. You've got Shohei Ohtani. Yeah. If on an app, if he's betting and it happened to be on baseball, is he Pete Rosed, or is Pete Rose making his point that, hey, it's a different era now? That would put a lot of pressure on Manfred, and he doesn't handle that well. I would love to see how they do that, because you either kick out the money train, the global money train in this scenario, this hypothetical, or you treat him like you did Pete Rose, you ban him, and you stick with that when all the other sports, Calvin Ridley misses a year and he's back and he's balling out for Jacksonville yesterday in London. It's the perception of one sport to the other is also interesting. Same for steroids, by the way.
Yeah.
6-game suspension in the league.
I mean, if you're going to do it, which I'm with you, Hutton, I would not recommend gambling, especially if you make the amount of money you do to play at that high level of a professional sport. But if you do, just don't be dumb and do one where it's like they can actually check your geolocation. They're not going to be able to go in if it's an offshore book, which is what everybody was doing before gambling became legalized in the States. I'm not advocating for you to do that. I'm just simply saying, if you wanted to be like an idiot, you proved it to us by how
go to
this
your
went
local
down.
country club is what you do. Deliver the bag.
There's easy
Jeremy
ways
Pruitt
around this,
style.
but people just always go for what's simple and not the smartest.
Coming up on the Tuesday edition, John McClain will join us. We'll be have plenty to react to off of Monday night football tonight between the Packers and the Raiders, and plenty of headlines as well across the NFL. Always are. We've also got Christian Hackenberg, former Penn State Nittany Lion. Where does Penn State stack up in the Big Ten? We're about to find out. Got to wait a little while, though, to see things play out because Michigan is dominant, albeit against a not a great schedule, but dominant in the way they are boat racing opponents. And Ohio State, they continue to win. Penn State does the same. How's it going to play out and shake out? Christian joins us to discuss that. Plus, Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, gives us the latest scouting report on the players for the NFL. Join us 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Tuesday for Hot Mic.